There will be a day when every voice you know is gone, but something made by human hands may still be sitting quietly under the ground. Not a name, not a memory, maybe not even a story, just a mark, a fragment, a shape in stone, glass, bone, metal, or altered earth. Your body will vanish quickly, your language may vanish more slowly, but the world does not erase everything at the same speed. So after all the noise of human life has passed into silence, what will still remain of humans after 10,000 years? The first thing that disappears is not the city, not the road, not the stone, and not the mark left in the ground. The first thing that disappears is the living softness of the human body.
What will still remain of humans after 10,000 years?
Another voice, a chest that rose and fell in sleep. All of it belongs to a very brief kind of material. We are made mostly of water, warm tissue, fat, muscle, organs, and fragile membranes. While we are alive, the body is held together by breath, circulation, immune defense, repair, and constant chemical work. The moment that work stops, the body does not remain as a person-shaped object for very long. It begins returning to the world that made it. This is not a dramatic process in the deep history of the earth. It is ordinary. It has happened to every generation before us, from people in modern apartments to people who slept beside fires, under hides, near rivers, in caves, on open ground, and in villages that are now only stains in soil. A living body feels solid from the inside. It feels like the center of the world because every memory, every fear, every hunger, every tired step comes through it. But to time, the soft body is almost temporary. After death, cells lose the conditions they need to hold their form. Enzymes that once helped life continue begin breaking tissues down from within. Bacteria, especially from the gut, spread into places they could not enter freely during life. Insects, scavengers, moisture, heat, oxygen, soil chemistry, and microbes all change the pace. In a warm, open place, the body can be reduced with startling speed. In a cold, dry, sealed, or oxygen-poor place, it may last far longer. But even under good conditions, the soft image of the person is usually the part least likely to travel across 10,000 years. This matters because the question of what remains of humans after 10,000 years begins with a quiet correction. We often imagine survival through monuments, names, faces, and stories. Yet the human body itself, the thing that felt cold, hunger, pain, comfort, fatigue, and sleep, is usually the first evidence to fail. The ancient beginning of our species was never built on permanence. Early humans and their relatives moved through landscapes where very little of an individual body could expect to endure. A footprint in wet ash might survive only if buried at the right moment. A bone might last only if covered quickly and protected from weather. A campsite might remain only as burned stones, flakes of rock, and altered sediment. Most people who ever lived left no complete body behind for us to find. Their existence passed through children, tools, food, movement, and small changes in the places they touched. The same will be true of us. A person may feel in life like an entire universe. But buried in ordinary ground, exposed to ordinary decay, that universe becomes chemistry. Water leaves, soft tissues collapse, skin loses its boundary, muscle no longer carries intention, organs no longer keep their private shapes. The body becomes attractive to other forms of life because nothing in nature is truly unused. Nutrients move outward. Carbon, nitrogen, calcium, phosphorus, and countless smaller traces rejoin soil, water, roots, fungi, bacteria, and animals. The body does not so much vanish as become unreadable as a person. That is the first loss. Not total disappearance, but the loss of human form. In 10,000 years, almost no one will be found as they were. Even the most carefully buried dead may not keep the face by which they were loved. The voice is gone first. Warmth is gone. Expression is gone. The softness that allowed the person to smile, speak, swallow, hold a child, or close their eyes at night is unlikely to remain. What may persist is harder, colder, less personal. Mineral, stain, outline, disturbance, context. And that is why the future remains of humanity will not begin with the part of us we feel most deeply. They will begin with what the earth can keep after the living body has stopped defending its own shape. A human being, is not only a body. While alive, a person seems to extend beyond skin. A voice leaves the mouth and enters another mind. A name moves through a family. A habit remains in a room after someone has gone. A laugh, a warning, a lullaby, a story told beside a fire, a sentence spoken at a table, all of these feel as if they should last because they can change another life. Yet they are among the most fragile things humans make. Long before bone weakens in the ground, long before metal rusts into reddish dust, the living signals of a person have already disappeared. The voice is only moving air shaped by breath, throat, tongue, teeth, lips, and memory. It exists for a moment, then it is gone unless another body hears it, remembers it, repeats it, or records it. For most of human existence, there was no recording device, no stored sound, no permanent archive of speech. The earliest people who shaped stone tools, carried children, watched animals, and learned the moods of rivers may have had complex ways of communicating, but their actual voices cannot reach us. We can infer that they called, taught, warned, soothed, and remembered, because humans are social animals and because cooperation has deep roots in our species, but the sound itself is missing. The exact tone of a mother calling to a child in a cold camp, the low voice of someone teaching where to find water, the last words spoken by an old person before death, all of it has vanished without leaving a direct mark. After 10,000 years, this will also be true for almost every voice alive today. Even in the modern world, where voices can be recorded, the survival of sound depends on fragile systems, devices, formats, electricity, maintenance, language, and someone in the future who still knows how to read the stored pattern. A voice saved in a file is not the same as a stone buried in dry ground. It needs a chain of technology to remain meaningful. Break that chain for long enough, and the stored voice may become only an arrangement of material, no longer a person speaking. Memory is even more delicate. A memory does not sit in the world like a shell or a tool. It lives in nervous tissue. It depends on a brain that is warm, fed, oxygenated, and awake enough to keep rebuilding its own patterns. Human memory feels deep from inside because it gives shape to identity. It tells a person who they are, who they love, what they fear, where they have been, and what kind of future they expect. But biologically, memory is not a carved inscription. It is living activity, maintained by cells that must keep functioning. When the brain dies, the private world held inside it does not fossilize. The smell of smoke from one childhood night, the feeling of hunger during a hard season, the path to a hidden place, the face of a loved one at dusk, these may vanish unless passed into another mind or fixed into some external trace. This is one reason human beings became so dependent on teaching, imitation, storytelling, gesture, tool-making, and later writing. From the beginning, the human answer to fragile memory was not to make the brain permanent, but to move knowledge from one body to another before it was lost. An older hunter did not need to live forever if a younger person learned the track, the season, the danger, the stone shape, the edible root, the patience required near water. Culture became a way of carrying memory across bodies that individually could not endure. But culture is still vulnerable. It needs people. It needs repetition. It needs children who listen, adults who remember, and a world stable enough for the old knowledge to matter. If a population disappears, a language can disappear with it. If a language disappears,
what will still remain of
plants,
humans
places,
after 10,000
ancestors,
years?
Tools and fears can collapse into silence. 10,000 years is long enough for languages to change beyond recognition, for oral histories to transform, for meanings to shift until the original speaker would not understand the descendant tongue. This does not mean nothing remains. Some memory can become pattern. A path becomes a road. A burial becomes a tradition. A repeated meal becomes agriculture. A remembered danger becomes a boundary. A symbol becomes writing. But the inner life itself, the warm and exact experience of being someone, is almost impossible to preserve. The future may find our bones, our waste, our buildings, our altered soils, even our genetic traces. It may find evidence that we feared, worked, cared, moved, gathered, built, and buried. But it will not hear most of us breathing in the dark, It will not know the private sentence a person never wrote down. It will not recall the small memories that made one life different from another. After 10,000 years, the human presence may remain, but the living human voice will be one of the first things to fall silent. The strange thing is that a human being may disappear before the evidence of human presence disappears. A body can lose its face, its voice, its warmth, and even much of its skeleton, while something around it continues to say that a person had been there. The ground may not keep the individual, but it can keep the interruption made by the individual. A hollow where a post once stood, a darker patch of soil where organic matter collected, a small scatter of stone flakes where someone shaped an edge, a burned layer where fire changed the chemistry of earth, a pit filled in by hands, a grave cut into older sediment, a path pressed into repeated use. These things are not the person, yet they are not ordinary nature either. They belong to that quiet border where the human body has vanished, but human action has not been completely erased. This is one of the deepest lessons archaeology gives us. The past is rarely preserved as a full scene. It is preserved as disturbance. Something was moved, broken, heated, buried, arranged, carried, sharpened, eaten, thrown away, or protected. Much of early human history reaches us in this form, not as whole lives, and often not as names, but as traces of behavior. A stone tool does not tell us the thoughts of the hand that made it, but it tells us there was a hand capable of planning a sharp edge. A hearth does not recover the voices around the fire, but it shows that heat was controlled, perhaps shared, perhaps returned to again and again. Cut marks on bone do not bring back hunger itself, but they show that bodies, tools, animals, and survival met in one place. Footprints, when they survive at all, are even more haunting because they come closest to the absent body. They are not the person. They are only pressure recorded by mud, ash, sand, or sediment at a lucky moment. Yet they can still carry direction, speed, size, and sometimes the presence of more than one walker. A footprint is a brief contact between flesh and ground that somehow outlived the flesh. After 10,000 years, many signs of us may work in the same way. They may not preserve who we were in the way we imagine ourselves. They may preserve where we interrupted the world. The oldest beginnings of humanity already teach this. Most ancient people did not leave monuments. They left broken stone, burned earth, bones with marks, pollen trapped in sediment, pigments on mineral surfaces, shells carried away from shorelines, and spaces used often enough to be changed. Their bodies were rare finds compared with the vast number of lives actually lived. For every bone recovered, there were countless people whose remains returned fully to the landscape. Yet those people were not meaningless in the record. They moved resources. They taught skills. They shaped tools. They used fire. They followed animals. They raised children. They altered the places where they paused. Human presence became visible through repeated contact, not through permanent bodies. That may be the most honest way to think about our own future trace. 10,000 years from now, if anyone or anything studies this age, it may not begin with a recognizable person. It may begin with a pattern that should not be there, a layer of material too mixed to be natural, a concentration of metals, a buried floor, a foundation line, a roadbed under soil, fragments of plastic or glass sorted into old drainage channels, bones of animals found in numbers and forms shaped by breeding, farming, transport and slaughter, seeds and pollen from plants spread far beyond their older ranges. The first evidence may not say, "Here is a human face." It may say, "Here the world was organized by a species that kept changing its surroundings." This is different from memory, but it is not nothing. A memory asks to be understood from the inside. A trace asks to be interpreted from the outside. A future observer may not know the fear inside a person walking home at night, or the comfort of a hand resting on a sleeping child, or the tired relief of closing a door after a long day. But they may see that doors existed, that shelters were built, that fires were managed, that food was stored, that dead were sometimes buried with care, that landscapes were cut and filled and crossed. The human being as a private world may be gone. The human being as a force in matter may remain. And so the first answer to the question is not a statue, not a city, not a book, and not a preserved face. It is the altered world around the vanished body. Long after softness fails, after voice falls silent, after personal memory loses its last living carrier, the ground may still hold the outline of having been touched. What remains of humans may begin not with us, but with the places where the earth had to make room for us. If the soft body is the first to lose its human shape, the harder body begins a slower journey. Bone and teeth do not escape time, but they speak a different language to it. They are not made only of living softness. They are partly mineral, built around calcium phosphate crystals, strengthened by collagen, remodeled through life, and shaped by food, movement, age, illness, injury, and inheritance. While a person is alive, bone is not dead material. It repairs, responds, thickens, thins, and changes under pressure. A leg bone carries the history of walking. A spine carries the cost of posture and labour. A tooth carries the marks of chewing, grinding, childhood growth, and sometimes hunger or disease. After death, when skin and muscle begin to disappear, bone and teeth may remain as the last recognisable architecture of the body. This is why so much of the deep human past reaches us through fragments: a jaw, a molar, a femur, a skull piece, a finger bone found in sediment, a tooth small enough to fit in a palm yet old enough to change what we think we know. But even bone is not guaranteed. It survives only when the world around it allows survival. Acidic soils can dissolve it. Wet, shifting ground can break it. Roots can split it. Animals can scatter it. Sun, wind, freezing, thawing, pressure, and flowing water can slowly erase its form. A skeleton buried in one place may last thousands of years, while another body, laid down in different soil, may leave almost nothing. Preservation is not a promise made to the dead. It is a negotiation with chemistry, burial, climate, depth, oxygen, microbes, minerals and chance. Teeth often have a better chance
What
than
will
many
still
bones
remain
because
of
enamel
humans
is the hardest
after
substance the human
10,000
body
years?
makes. It is not living tissue in the same way bone is. It does not repair itself once formed. That is one reason it keeps marks so faithfully. A tooth can hold scratches from food, wear from grit, cracks from pressure, and chemical signals from childhood. It can also protect tiny traces that researchers may study carefully, such as isotopes that suggest broad patterns of diet or movement, or ancient DNA when conditions are favourable enough. None of this turns a tooth into a full biography. It does not tell us every meal, every fear, or every thought, but compared with a vanished voice, a tooth is a remarkable survivor. The beginnings of human history are full of this imbalance. Vast numbers of people lived, moved, suffered, adapted, and died, yet only a tiny fraction became part of the surviving record. We know early human relatives not because most of them were preserved, but because a few hard pieces happened to enter conditions that protected them long enough to be found. A skull under volcanic ash, a jaw in a cave floor, bones sealed in sediment, teeth left where water and soil did not completely destroy them. From these remains, scientists work with patience, not with certainty beyond the evidence. They compare shape, thickness, wear, growth, breakage, and context. They ask how old the deposit may be, what other materials were nearby, whether the bone was moved after death, whether marks came from tools, animals, weather, or later damage. The hard body survives, but it must still be interpreted carefully. 10,000 years from now, the same rule would apply to us. A future observer might not find a complete person. They might find a tooth in a collapsed burial ground, a fragment of skull in a dry cave, a femur sealed beneath rubble, a child's small bone preserved in a protected layer, or nothing at all where many thousands once lived. If they found enough, they could learn that we stood upright, walked on 2 legs, had large brains for our body size, cared for teeth with varying success, suffered injuries, aged, healed, ate different diets, and lived in bodies shaped by both biology and culture. They might see signs of medical treatment in repaired bones or artificial materials near the body. They might see dental fillings, implants, joint replacements, surgical metal, or other traces that show how strongly modern humans tried to extend and repair the failing body. But the person would still be incomplete. Bone gives structure, not presence. Teeth give durability, not voice. A skeleton can show that someone lived under gravity, ate with a mouth, moved through the world, grew from childhood, endured stress, and finally entered the ground. It cannot restore the warmth that once moved through those bones. So after 10,000 years, the hard parts of us may remain as one of the clearest biological answers to the question. Yet even then, what survives is not the whole human being. It is the frame after the life has gone, the mineral shadow of a body that once believed itself solid, central, and awake. A tooth or bone does not speak in the way a living person speaks, but it can still carry a kind of quiet record. Not a memory, not a name, not a sentence, but pressure, hunger, growth, strain, healing, disease, and habit, written into material that once belonged to life. When archaeologists study human remains, they are not simply looking at death. They are looking at the long argument between a body and the world it had to survive in. A tooth can show wear from chewing hard food or food mixed with grit. A jaw can carry signs of repeated use. A spine can show stress from movement, lifting, posture, and age. A healed fracture can say that injury did not always mean immediate death, and that some people lived long enough for the body to repair itself. A child's bones can show growth interrupted by illness or poor nutrition. Enamel can sometimes carry faint evidence of stress during childhood, because teeth form in stages and do not remake themselves in the same way living bone does. None of this gives a complete life, but it gives a boundary around what that life had to endure. It tells us that the human body was never separate from food, climate, work, disease, care, and place. This is why ancient remains are so powerful even when they are small. A single tooth may hold information about diet. A bone may show whether a person reached adulthood, whether they had suffered certain infections, whether they carried repeated physical strain, or whether they had healed after trauma. In some cases, chemical signals in bones and teeth can suggest broad patterns of what someone ate or where they may have grown up. In some cases, DNA can reveal relationships, ancestry, population movement, and inherited traits, if preservation is good enough and contamination is carefully controlled. But the careful phrase is always important. These traces suggest. They do not magically reveal everything. A worn tooth does not tell the whole menu. A strong arm bone does not tell the whole life of labor. A healed wound does not tell whether the person was loved, feared, unlucky, protected, or simply stubborn enough to survive. The evidence is real, but it remains partial. That partialness is not a weakness. It is the honest nature of deep time. The earliest human story was built from such fragments. We know that bodies walked long distances, used hands with skill, ate changing diets, gave birth, carried children, became ill, recovered, aged, and died, because hard tissue sometimes kept the marks of those realities. Teeth can show that childhood was not always smooth. Bones can show that movement left consequences. Skulls can show growth, injury, ancestry, and variation. Pelvises, limb bones, and joint surfaces can show how bodies moved under gravity. Even the absence of certain remains can matter, because it reminds us that the record is not a fair census of everyone who lived. Some environments preserve, others erase. A cave may protect what open ground destroys. Dryness may save what wet soil dissolves. Cold may slow what warmth speeds up. So when we look back at early people, we are not seeing humanity evenly. We are seeing the survivors of preservation. 10,000 years from now, if our bones and teeth are studied in the same way, they may reveal a species deeply marked by its own inventions. Future observers might find teeth shaped by soft processed foods, dental repair, fillings, implants, wear from grinding, or the absence of teeth replaced by artificial materials. They might find bones repaired with metal plates, joints replaced by titanium or ceramic, spines showing sedentary strain as well as labor, healed injuries from accidents, signs of surgery, or patterns linked to long lives in large settled populations. They might see that many humans lived long enough for chronic wear to accumulate, while others died young, as humans always have. They might see differences between rich and poor bodies, between bodies with medical care and bodies without it, between those who lived with abundance and those who lived with scarcity. They might see that food had changed us, not by turning us into something separate from nature, but by altering the pressures on teeth, jaws, bones, and metabolism. Yet even with all this evidence, the future would still be reading from the outside. A skeleton may show arthritis, but not the exact morning when standing up became painful. A tooth may show childhood stress, but not the face of the person who offered food when food was short. A healed fracture may show survival, but not the voice that stayed nearby during recovery.
What will still remain of humans after 10,000 years?
Not the full meaning of those consequences. It can show that a body was shaped by hunger, care, work, injury, age, and technology. It can show that humans were biological beings living inside cultural worlds. But it cannot fully restore the person who once looked out from behind the eyes. After 10,000 years, the hard body may still be one of the clearest witnesses left. It may tell future minds that we were upright animals, tool users, food changers, healers, sufferers, parents, workers, patients, and survivors. But it will speak slowly, through marks and minerals, and every answer it gives will carry the silence of everything it cannot say. After enough time has passed, the body no longer looks like the person who once moved through ordinary days. It becomes quieter, harder, and more difficult to recognize. A tooth may rest in a tray. A piece of jaw may be lifted from compacted soil. A femur may appear where water, minerals, pressure, and chance allowed it to remain. No one experiences life from inside the body this way. No one wakes in the morning feeling like future evidence. Yet across deep time, this may be the most durable form a human life can take. The living person becomes material that can be measured, dated, compared, scanned, and placed inside a larger pattern. This is not a cold way to think about the dead if it is done with care. It is one of the few ways the distant human past can still be approached at all. When softness is gone, when voice is gone, when personal memory has no living carrier, the mineral body may still allow a small return. Not the return of the person as they were, but the return of evidence that a human life once passed through hunger, growth, injury, work, illness, care, and place. Much of what we know about ancient humans and earlier human relatives depends on hard fragments that survived by rare chance. A tooth can outlast the mouth that held it. A jaw can outlast the language spoken above it. A skull can outlast the stories once carried inside it. The record of our origins is not a smooth line of complete lives. It is a broken field of bone, teeth, tools, sediment, fire traces, and long silences. Scientists do not pull certainty from these fragments by imagination. They build careful interpretations from shape, context, dating, chemistry, comparison, and repeated testing. A bone is never only a bone by itself. Its meaning depends on where it was found, what surrounded it, whether it was buried quickly, whether it was moved by water, broken by pressure, gnawed by animals, burned by fire, cut by tools, or altered after death. 10,000 years from now, our own remains would need the same caution. A tooth from a city cemetery would not mean the same thing as a tooth sealed in a cave floor. A bone under collapsed concrete would not tell the same story as a bone preserved in dry desert soil. Human material becomes readable only when the world around it is read too. This is why the phrase human remains can be misleading. What remains is never only human, it is human material, changed by earth. Bone in mineral-rich ground may absorb new elements. Bone in acidic soil may weaken or disappear. DNA may survive in protected conditions and fail completely in others. Heat, water, roots, microbes, oxygen, and time may blur the original signal. A future observer would have to separate what belonged to life from what happened during burial. In that slow exchange, the individual may become less visible, while the species becomes clearer. Many fragments from many people could reveal broad patterns: upright walking, diet, disease, injury, aging, migration, medical repair, and the uneven conditions of human life. But there is a quiet sadness in this survival. The private self does not remain in the femur, a last dream does not remain in enamel. The smell of rain, the familiar room, the hand reached for in darkness, these usually do not pass into the ground. What survives is not daily life itself, but the pressure daily life left on matter. Still, that is not nothing. A healed break can say the body was given time. A worn tooth can say food and jaw met again and again. A burial can say the dead were not simply ignored. After 10,000 years, some of us may remain as bone, some as teeth, some as chemical traces, and many not at all. But wherever the hard body survives, it will carry one simple truth across the silence. Humans were living animals before they were builders, speakers, citizens, or names, and every trace they left began inside a fragile body that time was always waiting to take apart. Long before people built large monuments, they were already doing something that may leave a deeper sign than many buildings. They were returning the dead to a place, not always in the same way, not everywhere, and not with one simple meaning that can be forced onto every culture. But again and again, across human history, the dead were not treated as ordinary debris. A body might be placed in a pit, covered with earth, protected by stones, arranged in a certain posture, surrounded by objects, marked by pigment or laid near others. Sometimes the evidence is clear, sometimes it is debated. Sometimes natural burial and deliberate burial can be difficult to separate. But where careful burial can be recognized, it shows something very important about what may remain of humans after 10,000 years. It shows that humans did not only live in places, they gave places meaning. A grave is not just a hole in the ground, it is an interruption made with attention. Someone had to stop, someone had to move soil, someone had to place the body, someone may have returned, remembered, avoided stepping there, or told others who lay beneath that surface. The person inside the grave might lose their face, voice, skin, and warmth, but the act around them could remain longer than the body itself. This is why burial matters in the long story of human origins. It connects the fragile body to a durable landscape. The dead person becomes part of soil, but the decision to bury becomes part of history. For early humans, care for the dead may not always have looked like later ritual or organized religion. It may have been simple, practical, emotional, social, or all of these at once. A body near a living group can attract scavengers, smell, and disease risk. Moving or covering the dead can have practical reasons, but practical action does not remove meaning. Human life is often built from actions that are both useful and emotional. Feeding a child keeps the child alive, but it also becomes care. Sharing fire gives warmth, but it also becomes belonging. Covering the dead may protect the living, but it may also show that the body was not treated as nothing. After 10,000 years, this mixture may be what survives most clearly. Not a full belief system, not exact grief, not the name of the person, but the shape of a decision. The ground may show that a body was placed rather than abandoned. It may show that the body lay in a prepared space. It may show that objects were included, or that several dead were gathered in one area over time. These signs must be read carefully, because imagination can easily outrun evidence. A shell near a body may be meaningful, or it may have entered the deposit in another way. Red pigment may suggest attention, but context matters. A posture may be intentional, or shaped by decay, pressure, and burial conditions. Still, when many details point together,
what will still remain of humans
that
after
a vanished body
10,000
belonged to a
years?
social world. This matters for the future too. 10,000 years from now, many of our ordinary houses may be broken, many screens unreadable, many names lost, and many records corrupted or gone. Yet cemeteries, graves, tombs, cremation deposits, burial urns, and memorial landscapes may still leave patterns. Even if inscriptions weather away, even if language cannot be read, the arrangement of the dead may remain. Rows, clusters, orientations, containers, cut pits, stone markers, chemical traces of burned bone, metal objects, dental materials, coffin stains, and soil disturbances may all say that death was organized by the living. A future observer might not know the prayer, song, silence, or private sorrow that once surrounded a burial, but they may know that humans paused for their dead. That is a powerful survival. The body alone says that an organism lived, A burial says that another human being responded. It turns one death into evidence of relationship. And after 10,000 years, when so much of the living person has returned to Earth, that response may be among the most human things left behind. Objects placed with the dead can be among the most careful traces humans leave, who both, but they are also among the easiest to misunderstand. A bead near a wrist, a blade near a hand, a pot near the head, a shell at the chest, a stone under the body, a patch of red pigment in the soil. Each one may feel like a message. Yet after thousands of years, the message is rarely complete. The object is still there, but the reason may be gone. It may have been a gift, a tool, a symbol, a memory, an offering, a personal belonging, a sign of rank, or something placed for reasons no outside observer can fully recover. This is why burial evidence must be held gently. It can show that people acted with attention around death. It cannot always tell us exactly what they believed. Still, even without certainty, the pattern matters. When an object is placed with a body in a way that does not look accidental, it suggests that the dead person was not treated as empty matter. Someone thought the placement mattered. Someone made a choice that outlasted the body's warmth. The posture of the body can also become a trace of care. Some burials hold the body extended. Others show a crouched position, as if knees were drawn toward the chest. Some bodies are placed on one side. Some are wrapped, bound, covered, or enclosed, though the wrapping itself may decay and leave only stains, impressions, or unusual bone positions. In ordinary life, posture changes constantly. A sleeping person turns. A tired person shifts. A frightened person tightens. But a buried posture can freeze one final arrangement, not because the person chose it, but because the living placed the body in that way, or because decay and pressure later changed what was first done. The careful work is to ask what can truly be known. Was the body arranged before burial? Did the soil collapse around it? Were bones moved by water, roots, animals, or later digging? Was the grave reopened? Were several people buried together at one time, or over many years? These questions keep the interpretation honest. They also make the human story deeper, because they remind us that even the dead continue to be changed by the world around them. The layers around a grave may be as important as the bones inside it. A grave cut can slice through older soil, making a clear edge where people once dug downward. A fill layer may contain different sediment from the ground around it. Charcoal, pollen, fibers, seeds, pigments, stone chips, metal stains, coffin wood, or traces of cloth may survive in small amounts. The body itself may alter the soil as it decomposes, leaving chemical signals even when soft tissue is long gone. In some places, the outline of a coffin remains only as a darker rectangle. In others, a cremation leaves burned bone and ash, changing the record completely. The dead body has not simply been placed into the earth. It has entered a conversation with soil, water, air, minerals, insects, microbes, and time. 10,000 years from now, future observers may find our burial places in this same broken language. They may not read every name carved into stone. Weather may soften letters. Languages may shift beyond recognition. Digital memorials may fail. But the arrangement of bodies, urns, markers, containers, paths, walls, flowers reduced to pollen, and materials placed with the dead may still show that death was socially organized. They may see that some bodies were treated differently from others, revealing inequality, family grouping, religious practice, crisis, epidemic, war, migration, or simply local custom. But they would still need humility. A ring near a hand may not reveal love by itself. A toy near a child may not tell the child's name. A polished stone may not explain the belief behind it. What remains is not the grief itself, but the shape grief may have taken in matter. And that shape may last longer than almost any spoken farewell. A grave can preserve something that bone alone cannot. Bone says that a body existed. A grave says that the body mattered to someone else. That difference is small in material, but large in meaning. A skeleton without context may be read as biology. Age, diet, injury, disease, ancestry, movement, and death. A burial adds another layer. It shows that the dead entered the actions of the living. Someone saw the body, decided what should happen, touched it or carried it, chose a place, opened the ground, covered it, marked it, or returned to it. Even when the individual name is gone, even when the face has vanished, even when the exact belief cannot be recovered, the arrangement can still whisper that this person was not only an organism, they belong to a world of other people. That may be one of the most durable human traces of all. From the beginning, humans were not only toolmakers or walkers, they were social animals whose lives depended on attention from others. A newborn could not survive without care. An injured adult might live if others waited, fed, protected, or helped them move. An old person might carry memory, skill, and warning, even after physical strength declined. The human body was fragile, but the human group made fragility more survivable. Burial may belong to that same wider pattern. It does not prove one simple idea in every time and place. It does not always prove religion or belief in an afterlife, or one kind of grief, but it often shows that death did not end social attention immediately. The dead body still shaped the behavior of the living. After 10,000 years, that behavior may be clearer than the emotion behind it. The future may not know whether people cried, sang, prayed, stood silently, or felt numb, but it may see that hands made a place for the dead. This is why a burial can be more human than a monument. A monument can be built for power, display, fear, memory, pride, or rule. A grave may be modest, small, almost invisible, and still hold a deeper sign. It can reveal that a human life was recognized at the moment it could no longer speak for itself. Some graves may be rich, with durable objects, stone chambers, metal, ceramics, and markers. Others may be plain, with almost nothing but a body and the soil around it. The plain grave should not be mistaken for an empty one. Poverty, simplicity, crisis, mobility.
What will still remain of humans after 10,000 years?
Care does not always become material wealth. A person buried with few objects may still have been loved. A person buried with many objects may not tell us exactly what love, status, fear, or duty meant in that place. The evidence must remain modest, because deep time removes the private reasons and leaves only the arrangement. Yet even that arrangement has value. It says that death was handled, not merely ignored. It says that human beings made meaning through action, not only through words. 10,000 years from now, if our own burial places remain, they may not preserve us as we hoped. Names may fade. Photographs may decay. Flowers may become dust. Digital records may become unreadable. The living stories attached to each grave may break after a few generations, as they often do. But a future observer may still find rows, clusters, urns, burned bone, cut pits, stone borders, coffin stains, personal objects, and the repeated pattern of placing the dead apart from ordinary waste. That pattern may tell them something quiet and essential. Humans did not only leave behind tools and damage, they also left behind gestures of recognition. They made spaces where the absent were kept within the world of the living for a little longer. And perhaps, after 10,000 years, that is what a grave preserves best. Not the full person, not the full grief, not the full belief, but proof that someone once paused beside the silence and answered it with care. A small object can outlive the hand that made it by a distance almost too large to feel. A cup breaks, and the person who used it may be forgotten, but the broken edge can remain. A stone blade falls into soil, and the camp around it disappears, but the sharp surface may still show where another stone struck it. A glass bead, a fired clay bowl, a copper pin, a steel nail, a plastic fragment, a piece of concrete. These things are not alive, yet some of them can survive longer than bodies, voices, names, and houses. They may seem ordinary now because we live among objects. We touch them without noticing. We drink from them, step over them, throw them away, lose them in drawers, bury them under new floors, or send them into rubbish heaps. But time treats ordinary things differently from ordinary life. The body must keep repairing itself to stay whole. Many objects do not. They only have to resist breaking, dissolving, burning, rusting, or being ground down into smaller pieces. That is why the future remains of humanity may not begin with palaces or famous buildings. They may begin with fragments of everyday matter. This has already been true through much of human history. Archaeology often finds people through what they dropped, shaped, used, burned, broke, or discarded. Stone tools can survive for immense spans because stone does not decay like flesh. A flake struck from a core can keep the angle of a decision long after the maker is gone. Pottery, once clay has been fired, can break easily in daily life, but last stubbornly in the ground. A whole vessel may be rare, but small sherds can persist in great numbers. Each fragment may carry clues: the kind of clay, the firing method, the shape of the rim, the decoration, the soot from cooking, the residue of food, the place where it was made or traded. One broken pot can connect hands, fire, meals, storage, movement, and settlement. It does not need to be beautiful to matter. It only needs to have passed through human use and entered conditions where the earth did not erase it completely. Metals carry a different story. Some corrode quickly, especially in wet or salty conditions. Iron can rust until little remains but a stain. Copper alloys may change color and form. Gold can endure with remarkable stability. Lead can persist in ways that are troubling as well as useful to those who study the past. The survival of metal depends on chemistry, oxygen, water, soil, and the metal itself. But even when a metal object decays, its corrosion can leave outlines, traces, and chemical signals. The object may lose its original shine, but not always its evidence. Modern materials add another layer to the question. Glass can break, but many glass fragments resist decay. Concrete may crack and crumble, but its pieces can remain as altered, stone-like material. Plastics are more complicated. Many plastics become brittle, fragment, or change under sunlight, heat, oxygen, and mechanical wear, yet small pieces may persist in sediments for very long periods. They may not remain as the objects we recognize today. A bottle may not look like a bottle after 10,000 years. A bag may not remain a bag, but particles, fragments, layers, or chemical traces may still say that humans made materials the older Earth had not made in the same way. The ancient beginning of our species was marked by this same pattern. The soft living being vanished while the made object endured. A hand-shaped stone because a body needed food, cutting edges, protection, or access to marrow and plant fibers. That hand is gone. The need is gone. The exact moment is gone. But the stone may remain. After 10,000 years, our world may be read through a much wider scatter of made things. Not only tools, but packaging, wires, ceramics, bricks, glass, electronics, road material, synthetic fibers, and fragments too small to name. Future observers may not understand every object's purpose. They may not know which things were precious and which were disposable. That confusion itself would say something about us. We made so much that even our waste could become one of our longest memories. A small broken object may survive not because it was important, but because matter sometimes remembers carelessly. And in that careless memory, a future world may find the shape of our hands. The objects most likely to survive are not always the objects people meant to make immortal. This is one of the quiet reversals of archaeology. A king may order a monument, a city may raise a wall, a government may carve a name in stone, and yet the long future may remember. A cooking pot, a broken tile, a bottle shard, a nail, a button, or a tool dropped beside a fire. Power tries to speak loudly, but time does not always listen to loudness. Time listens to material, burial, chemistry, and chance. A palace may collapse because its beams rot, its stones are reused, its roof fails, its walls crack, and its meaning disappears. A small piece of fired clay, buried in stable soil, may remain after the palace has lost its outline. A ruler's name may vanish from memory, while a shard from an ordinary bowl still carries soot from repeated meals. This does not make the bowl greater than the ruler. It simply means survival is not the same as importance. The earth keeps some things because they are durable, not because they were loved, feared, or admired. That is why everyday objects can be so powerful. They are close to the body. They belong to eating, sleeping, cutting, carrying, storing, repairing, trading, and touching. They show how humans lived, before they show what humans claimed about themselves. A monument may tell us what a society wanted to display. A small object may reveal what bodies actually needed. The oldest traces of human life often work in this modest way. A stone flake does not announce a kingdom. It shows that someone needed an edge. A grinding stone does not describe a myth. It shows repeated contact between hands, food, and hard surface. A hearth does not preserve every conversation around it. It preserves heat, ash, and changed earth. These ordinary traces are
what
not
will
poor
still
evidence.
remain of humans
They are
after
some of the most honest
10,000
evidence,
years?
because they come from use. A broken pot may show storage. A chipped blade may show work. A needle, where it survives, may suggest covering, repair, or clothing. A bead may suggest attention to the body, exchange, or identity, though the exact meaning must be handled carefully. Ordinary things gather the pressure of daily life. They do not need to explain themselves fully to show that human beings were there. 10,000 years from now, this may be even more true of us. The objects we consider unimportant may outlast the records we consider serious. A plastic cap, a ceramic bathroom tile, a glass screen fragment, a stainless steel screw, a piece of road surface, a concrete block, a synthetic fibre trapped in sediment may last longer than a speech, a password, a celebrity name, a political argument, or a private message. The future may not know what we were proud of. It may know what we produced in huge numbers. That is a humbling thought, because modern people are surrounded by disposable objects, and disposable does not always mean short-lived. Something used for minutes may remain as material for centuries or longer, especially if buried, sealed, or broken into particles that spread through soil and water. A food wrapper may not carry the emotional weight of a family photograph, but the wrapper may survive in ways the photograph does not. A phone may be unreadable, but its glass, metals, rare elements, and synthetic parts may still be present. The meaning may die before the material does. This is the gap future interpreters would face again and again. They might find objects without knowing whether they were sacred, useful, cheap, dangerous, or ignored. They might find more waste than art, more fragments than monuments, more mass production than personal memory. Yet even that imbalance would answer part of the question. Humans may remain not mainly as what they wanted to be remembered for, but as what they repeatedly made, used, broke, and left behind. A tiny object can survive because it entered the ground at the right time, in the right place, with the right chemistry. It can live longer than a title, longer than a face, longer than the pride of a whole age. And in that small survival, it may tell a future world something plain and unsettling. Human life was built not only from great achievements, but from countless ordinary touches that passed into matter before passing out of memory. A broken cup can sometimes tell a deeper truth than a standing monument. The monument may have been built to control memory. It may have been designed to impress, to frighten, to honor, to declare that a person or a people mattered. But a broken cup, a chipped blade, a cracked bowl, or a worn handle comes from another layer of life. It does not speak from the top of society. It speaks from the hand. It belongs to thirst, hunger, storage, repair, habit, work, and repetition. That is why small objects can be so valuable across deep time. They do not only show that humans could build, they show that humans had to live. A statue may survive as a statement. A tool survives as a relationship between a body and a need. A pot survives as a relationship between food, fire, water, and waiting. A needle, a bead, a button, or a piece of cloth preserved by rare conditions may show the quiet work of covering the body, marking identity, or holding fragile things together. These objects are modest, but modest does not mean shallow. Daily life leaves marks because it happens again and again. A knife is sharpened, a bowl is blackened by smoke, a grinding stone is worn smooth by grain, a path is pressed by feet, a floor gathers ash, crumbs, fibres, insects, and dust. Over time, ordinary use becomes a pattern strong enough for the ground to keep. This is why the earliest human traces often feel more intimate than great ruins. A stone flake does not tell us the maker's name, but it preserves a moment of intention. Someone selected a stone, struck it, shaped an edge, and likely used it for a task connected to survival. That edge may have touched meat, hide, wood, plant fibre, or bone. The human hand is gone. The hunger is gone. The camp may be gone. But the altered stone remains as proof that a mind and a body once met a problem in the material world. After 10,000 years, our own small objects may work in a similar way, though the materials will be different and the scale far larger. A future observer may not begin with our tallest towers. They may begin with what lies scattered through old ground: ceramic fragments, glass, screws, wires, artificial fibers, concrete chips, packaging pieces, fragments of screens, food containers, tools, toys, medical objects, and things we used once and forgot. Some of these may be hard to understand. A future mind might find a plastic fragment and not know the exact product it came from. It might find a metal spring and not know the machine. It might find a small circuit board and not know the message that passed through it. But even without full meaning, such objects would reveal a world of repeated manufacture, movement, repair, consumption, and disposal. They would show that humans did not merely walk through nature, they surrounded themselves with made matter. The danger is that a future reader may know our habits better than our hopes. They may see that we made containers before they know what we believed. They may see waste before art. They may see industrial fragments before kindness. But this is not only a judgment, it is also a reminder. Human life has always been held together by ordinary things. The cup, the blade, the thread, the wall, the fire pit, the floor, the bag, the handle, the bowl. These are the small bridges between the fragile body and the difficult world. A monument tries to say, "Remember us." A broken object says something quieter. We were here, and we needed things. And our hands touch the world every day. A city looks permanent because it is larger than the body. It has walls, roads, pipes, bridges, foundations, towers, wires, doors, rooms, drains, tunnels, and buried systems that seem too heavy to vanish. To a person walking through it, a city can feel like the opposite of flesh. The body is tired by evening, but concrete remains. A voice fades, but a building stands. A life passes through a room, but the room continues to hold other lives. Yet a city is not truly permanent. It only appears still because it is constantly being repaired. Roofs are sealed, pipes are replaced, roads are resurfaced, trees are cut back, drains are cleared, electricity is restored, rust is painted over, cracks are filled before water enters them. The city survives because thousands or millions of small acts keep it from becoming a ruin. Once those acts stop, the city begins to age like a body, not with blood and organs, but with joints, skin, circulation and failure. Roads are its hardened skin. Pipes and cables are its hidden vessels. Buildings are its bones. Doors, windows, roofs and seals are its membranes. When maintenance stops, these parts do not fail all at once. They weaken slowly, unevenly, almost quietly. Water is often the first patient destroyer. It enters through a crack in a roof, freezes and expands in a wall, runs under pavement, carries soil away from foundations, rusts metal, rots wood, and gives roots a path. A bridge does not need to collapse on the first day to begin dying. It only needs moisture, oxygen,
what will still
changes,
remain of humans
stress,
after
and time.
10,000 years?
A road does not need disaster. It needs weather, weeds, and the absence of repair. In a few seasons, plants can enter edges and seams. In many decades, roots can lift surfaces, water can undercut layers, and sediment can cover what once looked clean and intentional. After centuries, many buildings that seemed solid may be open to sky, soil, animals, and trees. After thousands of years, the city may no longer look like a city from the surface. It may become rises and depressions, buried foundations, strange lines under vegetation, fragments of brick, glass, metal, asphalt, concrete, and altered ground. This is not very different from what has happened to older human settlements. Many places where people lived for generations are no longer obvious to the eye. They survive as mounds, walls hidden under soil, post holes, floors, hearths, drainage lines, rubbish pits, and changes in the chemistry of the earth. The beginning of human settlement was not the beginning of permanence. It was the beginning of heavier traces. People stayed longer in some places, built more, discarded more, buried more, burned more, and changed the ground more deeply. but even settled life depended on care. A roof without repair fails. A storehouse without protection empties. A path without feet becomes vegetation again. Modern cities are larger and made from materials earlier humans did not have, but they are still vulnerable to the same patient forces: water, heat, cold, roots, microbes, corrosion, gravity, and neglect. 10,000 years from now, the most famous skyline may not stand as a skyline. Towers may have fallen or been reduced to buried debris. Steel may corrode, glass may shatter, interiors may collapse. Underground systems may flood, cave in, or fill with sediment. Some massive structures may leave strong traces, especially where concrete, stone, tunnels, foundations, or dry conditions preserve them. But the living city, the city of traffic lights, voices, cooking smells, open shops, elevators, alarms, and footsteps will not remain. What may remain is the city after life has left it. Not a machine of human movement, but a damaged layer in the earth, a fossil of maintenance that stopped. And that may be one of the clearest answers to what humans leave behind. We do not leave cities because cities are eternal. We leave cities because, for a while, we fought decay together so intensely that even after we stop, the struggle leaves a shape. Once human repair stops, the city does not simply fall apart. It is slowly re-entered. The first visitors may be water, dust, insects, seeds, and wind. They do not come as enemies. They come because an opening has appeared. A cracked window lets rain inside. A blocked drain turns a street corner into a shallow pool. Dust gathers on floors where feet no longer pass. Seeds settle in gutters, roof edges, wall joints, and the thin seams of pavement. Some fail. Some take root. A small plant does not look powerful beside concrete, but it has time, moisture, and patience. Its roots follow weakness. They enter hairline cracks, widen them, trap more soil, hold more water, and make room for other plants. In this way, the city begins to change from a human system into an ecological surface. The hard edges soften, the straight lines blur. Empty spaces become habitat. Birds nest where signs once hung. Rodents move through walls. Insects enter rooms. Fungi and bacteria work on wood, paper, cloth, food waste, and anything once protected from weather. The city becomes useful again, but not in the way humans intended. It becomes useful to life that does not need permission. Water may be the most important return. Humans spend enormous effort pushing water away from buildings and roads. We shape gutters, drains, canals, sewers, pumps, roofs, slopes, barriers, and foundations to control where water goes. When that control weakens, water begins to choose its own paths. It collects in low places. It seeps through concrete. It rusts metal supports. It carries fine particles into basements and tunnels. It turns underground stations, parking structures, and service passages into wet chambers. In cold regions, freezing water expands inside cracks and slowly breaks stone, brick, asphalt, and concrete. In warm, wet regions, plants and microbes may work faster. In coastal cities, salt water can attack metal, weaken structures, and leave layers of sediment after floods. None of this requires a sudden catastrophe. The patient return of moisture is enough. This has always been part of the human story. Early people did not live outside nature in a clean separation. Their camps, shelters, hearths, paths, and later villages were always held inside weather, animals, roots, insects, and decay. A shelter lasted only as long as materials and repair allowed. A path remained open only while feet kept using it. A field stayed a field only while people cut, burned, planted, weeded, watered, or harvested. Human settlement has never truly defeated the living world. It has only negotiated with it season after season. Modern cities make that negotiation look hidden because pipes carry water underground, wires carry energy invisibly, and machines remove waste before it can be noticed. But the hidden agreement is still there. If maintenance ends, the agreement ends with it. After 10,000 years, the return of life may be so complete that a city is difficult to see from above. Forest, grassland, wetland, desert, or new coastline may cover what used to be streets. Roots may lace through foundations. Soil may form over roofs that collapsed long before. Animals may burrow into old embankments. Rivers may shift, burying districts under sediment or cutting through them. Wind may move sand over avenues. Vines may pull walls down because they never stop testing the weakness left by time. Still, beneath the plants, mud, and new soil, there may be hard lines that nature did not draw. A tunnel too straight, a foundation grid, a roadbed, a buried pipe, a concentration of brick, glass, metal, plastic, or concrete. The surface may belong again to roots and rain, but the deep layers may still remember human order. That is the strange future of a city. Life may cover it, soften it, and make it almost peaceful, while the ground below still holds the geometry of an absent species. After 10,000 years, a city may no longer rise as a city. It may not have streets that can be walked, rooms that can be entered, or towers that still point clearly into the sky. What remains may be lower, quieter, and harder to recognize. A strange thickness in the ground, a buried grid, a layer of broken stone-like material, glass, brick, metal, plastic, asphalt, concrete, ash, and soil mixed in a way that ordinary geology would not easily create. The city becomes less like an abandoned machine and more like a deposit. It stops being architecture and becomes stratigraphy. That is a humbling change. The place that once organized millions of lives into schedules, addresses, floors, doors, traffic, markets, hospitals, schools, and homes may become a band of unusual matter between older Earth below and newer Earth above. To a future observer, the living meaning may be gone, but the interruption may remain. A straight foundation line under forest soil, a tunnel filled with sediment, a drainage system sealed by mud.
What will still remain of humans after 10,000 years?
A basement that became a pond, then a hollow, then a buried pocket of minerals and debris. A city, after enough time, may become a fossil of human order. This does not mean every city would leave the same kind of trace. Some places are better at preserving the past than others. Dryness may keep certain materials longer. Floodplains may bury remains quickly, protecting some layers while destroying others. Coasts may erode, drown, or cover neighborhoods with marine sediment. Earthquakes may crush buildings into dense rubble. Forests may hide ruins under soil and roots. Deserts may expose and sandblast some surfaces while burying others. The future record would be uneven, just as the ancient record is uneven now. Many early settlements did not survive as recognizable places on the surface. Some became mounds built from repeated occupation, collapsed walls, floors, ash, food waste, and rebuilding. Others became only scattered stone, dark soil, postholes, hearths, or fragments of pottery. The beginning of settled human life did not produce permanent scenes. It produced layers. A place was used, repaired, abandoned, reused, burned, flooded, rebuilt, and covered. Modern cities are larger, denser, and made from different materials, but the principle is still familiar. Human presence becomes readable because it changes the ground. After 10,000 years, the most important remains of a city may not be the tallest structures, but the pattern below them. Deep foundations may show where heavy buildings stood. Subway tunnels, sewers, buried cables, pipelines, and underground rooms may leave long, unnatural corridors. Landfills may form concentrated deposits of manufactured material. Industrial zones may leave chemical signatures. Cemeteries, parks, old river channels, ports, and transport lines may each create different marks. From above, the land may look natural again. From within the ground, it may still carry a human arrangement. That arrangement would say something quiet about us. It would show that humans were not only biological bodies and not only tool users. We were a species that gathered in enormous numbers and made landscapes serve social life. We moved stone, water, metal, fuel, food, waste, light, and people through systems too large for one body to understand completely. Yet those systems depended on continued care. When care stopped, the system slowed, cracked, flooded, rusted, rooted, and settled into earth. So after 10,000 years, a city may remain not as the living place its inhabitants knew, but as a compressed memory of maintenance, density, and collective effort. It may be a layer where the earth looks slightly wrong, because for a brief time, humans asked it to hold more weight, more heat, more waste, more movement, and more intention than it had ever held before. The ground is not passive beneath human life. It receives what people drop, burn, bury, spill, scrape, trample, dig, plant, and throw away. While a person is alive, these acts seem small. A fire is lit for one night. A meal is cooked. A pit is dug, a floor is swept, ash is pushed aside, broken tools are discarded, seeds fall near a dwelling, waste is carried to the edge of a camp or village. A child runs over the same patch of earth. Animals are penned, fed, slaughtered, or buried. None of these actions need to be grand. Yet repeated over days, seasons, and generations, they change soil in ways that can last much longer than the people who made them. This is one of the quietest answers to what may remain after 10,000 years. Not a face, not a voice, not even a standing building, but a changed layer underfoot. Human presence often survives as ground that is no longer quite natural. Fire is one of the oldest ways humans altered the earth. A hearth may begin as a simple place where fuel burns, but heat can redden or harden soil, crack stones, leave charcoal, change minerals, and create ash that mixes into surrounding sediment. Charcoal can sometimes last a very long time because it is more resistant than ordinary plant matter. A small burn patch can show that heat was controlled in a particular place, perhaps once, perhaps many times. It cannot recover every story around the fire. It cannot tell us every voice that gathered near it, every cold night, every meal, every fear in the dark, but it can say that bodies came together with flame, fuel, and ground. From early human camps to later villages and modern homes, controlled fire has repeatedly turned ordinary earth into evidence. Pits are another kind of memory. A storage pit, rubbish pit, post hole, grave cut, drainage ditch, latrine or extraction hollow may be filled back in and forgotten by the living, but the soil may keep its outline. The fill may have a different colour, texture, density, or mixture from the soil around it. It may contain bone, seeds, shells, pottery, ash, charcoal, metal, glass, plastic, or chemical traces. A wooden post may rot away, leaving only a darker stain where it once stood. To the eye, the surface may look flat again. Beneath it, the ground may still hold the negative shape of human action. This has been true since people began staying in places long enough for their activities to accumulate. A campsite may leave scattered stone flakes and burned stones. A village may leave floors, post holes, hearths, waste areas, burial places, and soil enriched by food remains and animal dung. A field may leave traces of ploughing, irrigation, terracing, drainage, pollen shifts, and changed plant communities. Modern life extends this pattern on a larger scale. Our soils may hold coal ash, construction debris, industrial dust, fertilizer residues, road runoff, buried pipes, landfill layers, concrete fragments, and chemical signatures from factories, farms, vehicles, and cities. Some of these traces are useful to study. Some are signs of damage. All of them remind us that humans do not simply stand on the earth. We enter it. We mix ourselves into it through habit, work, waste, warmth, and settlement. After 10,000 years, many surfaces will have changed beyond recognition. Fields may become forest, streets may become soil, houses may become low mounds or buried rubble. But under the surface, a patient reader may still find ash where fire burned, dark soil where organic matter gathered, pits where hands cut downward, and layers where daily life thickened the ground. The earth may forget our names, but it may remember where we cooked, slept, worked, discarded, buried, and returned again. The strange thing about human traces is that the smallest actions may become the longest records. A person sweeping ash from a hearth is not trying to speak to the future. A family throwing broken pottery into a pit is not building a monument. A farmer turning soil at the same season year after year is not writing history in the usual sense. Yet these actions change the ground more faithfully than many official memories. They are repeated, they are physical, they press into material. This is why daily life can survive where names do not. A name needs a living speaker, a readable sign, or a chain of memory. A habit only needs to leave enough small changes in the same place. When humans return again and again to one spot, the soil begins to thicken with their presence. Food scraps, ash, trampled floors, animal dung, seeds, broken tools, charcoal, shell, bone, fibers,
What will
and
still
dust
remain of
slowly build a
humans
human
after
layer.
10,000
It may not
years?
look dramatic. It may not shine. But to someone reading the ground carefully, it can be one of the clearest signs that people lived there. This has been true from the beginning of human settlement. Before cities, before writing, before large states, people still made places different by using them. A shelter floor may become compacted because feet pressed it down. A hearth may be cleaned and rebuilt many times. A rubbish area may grow at the edge of a camp. A path may form because bodies take the same route to water, stone, wood, animals, or other people. These are not heroic acts. They are survival acts. But survival, repeated, becomes archaeology. A single meal disappears. Thousands of meals leave residues. One fire fades. Many fires leave ash, burned stones, and changed minerals. One footstep vanishes. Years of walking may create a track, then a road, then a buried line that still does not belong to nature alone. Human history is often made this way, not by one great event, but by ordinary pressure applied again and again. Agriculture made this even stronger. When people began planting, clearing, burning, irrigating, draining, and harvesting land, they changed soil in deeper and wider ways. A field is not simply a place where plants grow. It is a place where humans interrupt plant life on purpose. We choose some species and remove others. We loosen soil, move water, add waste, carry seeds, build terraces, cut trees, and return at the right time. After many generations, the ground can hold the memory of cultivation, even if no crop remains standing. Pollen can shift. Seeds can appear in unusual concentrations. Soil structure can change. Nutrients can rise or fall. Terraces may erode but still shape hillsides. Irrigation channels may fill with sediment but still leave lines in the land. These traces link modern people back to the ancient beginning of settled life. Once humans stayed, planted, stored, and returned, the ground became a partner in memory. Modern daily life may leave an even denser record, though not always a beautiful one. A parking lot, a garden, a landfill, a factory yard, a cemetery, a school field, a farm, and a kitchen floor all create different kinds of ground memory. Some are made from care, some from waste, some from damage. Chemical residues from fertilizers, fuels, metals, plastics, cleaning agents, construction materials, and industrial processes may remain when the actions that produced them are forgotten. Future observers may not know the person who opened a package, repaired a pipe, cooked a meal, washed a floor, or drove along a road. But enough of these actions together can leave a pattern no natural process would easily explain. That is why the ground can remember what humans forget. It does not remember in language. It does not understand intention. It keeps contact, mixture, pressure, burning, cutting, filling, and return. After 10,000 years, a future world may not hear our daily routines, but it may still find where those routines touch the earth most often. A human footprint can disappear in one rain, but a human layer can remain for thousands of years. This is the quiet difference between a moment and a pattern. One person steps on the ground and leaves almost nothing. Many people return to the same place, cook in the same area, bury waste in the same edge of settlement, repair the same floor, plant the same field, and the ground begins to change in a way that does not easily undo itself. The surface may look ordinary again. Grass may grow over it, trees may cover it, floods may lay new sediment across it. A later generation may walk there without knowing anything happened below, but beneath the surface the soil may still hold order. It may hold a darker stain where organic material gathered, a compacted surface where feet pressed clay into firmness, a line of post holes where a wall once stood, a lens of ash where fires burned again and again, or a pit filled with broken fragments of daily life. This is why the earth can sometimes preserve human presence better than human memory can. Memory depends on living people. Soil only needs contact and time. In the earliest human story, This kind of trace was often more common than preserved bodies. A person might vanish completely, but the place where people worked could remain as stone flakes scattered across old ground. A meal could be eaten and forgotten, but animal bone, burned seed, shell, or charcoal might remain. A shelter might rot away, but the holes where posts entered the earth could stay as stains. The ground did not keep the emotion of the place. It did not keep the warmth of the fire or the tired bodies near it, but it kept the fact that the place had been used. That is already a powerful answer. Humans were not only creatures who passed across landscapes, they made certain places repeat themselves. A camp returned to season after season, a field planted generation after generation, a burial ground visited again and again, a rubbish area filled slowly over time. Each one created a human rhythm inside the soil. After 10,000 years, our own world may leave similar rhythms, but on a much larger scale. Cities may become buried layers, farms may leave altered soils, roads may remain as compacted lines beneath vegetation, landfills may become dense deposits of manufactured material, industrial sites may leave chemical signatures, cemeteries may preserve ordered spaces where the dead were separated from ordinary waste. Even if the surface becomes forest, wetland, desert, or grassland, the deeper ground may still show where humans concentrated heat, food, stone, metal, bone, plastic, ash, water, and movement. The pattern may be broken, damaged, incomplete, and difficult to read, but it may still be there. A future observer might not know our languages. They might not know the names of nations, companies, streets, or families. They might not understand why one place mattered more than another, but they could see that the earth had been sorted by a particular animal. Some places were filled, some were cut, some were burned, some were levelled, some were planted, some were sealed under hard surfaces. Some were reopened again and again for the dead. In that sense, the ground does not preserve us as individuals. It preserves us as behaviour. It shows that human life was repetitive, social, material, and placemaking. We became visible to the future not only when we built upward, but when we pressed downward. This is a humbling form of survival. It does not flatter us. It does not keep our faces. It does not promise that our reasons will be understood. But it says that we were here in the only language the earth can keep. Layers, stains, cuts, fills, heat, pressure, and the quiet order left by countless vanished hands. Some of the longest human traces may not be things we built from stone, but living things we changed. A wall can collapse, a road can crack, a grave marker can lose its letters, but a plant carried, selected, planted, harvested, and replanted for thousands of years may continue to carry human choices inside its form. Agriculture did not only put food into storage, it changed the bodies of other species. Wild grasses became crops with larger seeds, different seed heads, altered timing and traits that made sense in fields shaped by human hands. Fruits became sweeter, larger, less bitter, easier to gather,
what
easier
will
to
still
store,
remain of
move.
humans after
Some plants became
10,000
so
years?
closely tied to human care that their future depended on planting, protection, irrigation, clearing, and harvest. This is a different kind of memory. It is not carved into stone. It is grown, eaten, selected, and passed forward through seed. When humans began farming in different parts of the world, they did not step outside nature. They entered a deeper agreement with it. They changed plants, and the plants changed them back. Fields asked for labour, harvests asked for timing, stored grain changed diet, settlement, risk, disease, population growth, conflict, and cooperation. A human body that once followed wild foods across a landscape now bent over soil, guarded crops, carried water, ground seeds, and waited for seasons to turn. The crop was not only food, it became an organizer of human time. Wheat, rice, maize, millet, barley, beans, potatoes, and many other crops became part of the human story because people repeatedly chose which seeds lived into the next year. That repeated choice could leave signs lasting far beyond any single farmer. After 10,000 years, the descendants of crops may still show that an animal with hands once favored certain traits. A future observer might not know the first person who saved a heavy seed head or carried a useful plant away from its original range, but they might see that some plants have been shaped away from older wild forms. They might find seeds in ancient storage pits, pollen in lake sediments, grains trapped in pottery residue, charred kernels in hearths, or terraces and irrigation lines where cultivation changed land. They might see that certain plants appeared in places where they would not easily have arrived without human movement. They might see that landscapes once filled with mixed wild growth had been cleared, simplified, watered, fenced, or burned for selected species. These traces would not say that farming was simple progress. The truth is more careful. Farming brought food security in some ways, but also new burdens. It could support larger populations, yet tie people to harvest failure. It could create surplus, yet demand harder seasonal labor. It could feed cities, yet narrow diets in some places. The agricultural trace is powerful because it shows both human creativity and human dependence. We became a species that changed plants in order to survive, and then depended on those changed plants in order to continue. This reaches directly into the question of what remains of humans after 10,000 years. If stone tools show hands, crops show selection across generations. If a grave shows care for the dead, a domesticated plant shows care, hunger, patience, and pressure applied to life itself. The plant carries no memory of us in the human sense. It does not remember the field, the song, the drought, the child sent to scare birds, or the old hand sorting seed by firelight, but its body may still carry the outcome of countless choices. A larger grain, a sweeter fruit, a plant unable to spread well without help, a crop growing far from its wild ancestors' home. These are quiet signatures of human presence. After names fade and houses fall, the living world may still bear marks of what we chose to feed, protect, multiply, and carry with us. Domestication is a quiet kind of memory because it does not need a monument, a written record, or a voice to continue. It lives in bodies. It lives in seed shape, fruit size, grain structure, growth timing, coat color, horn form, behavior, breeding cycles, and the hidden patterns of inheritance. When people selected one plant over another, saved one seed instead of another, protected one animal and not another, they were not writing history in symbols. They were changing which forms of life would be more likely to reach the future. This did not happen in a single moment. It was slow, uneven, and different in different places. Many early farmers may not have understood inheritance in a scientific way. They did not need to. They only needed to notice that certain plants were useful, certain animals were calmer, certain traits made food easier to gather, store, herd, milk, grind, carry, or protect. Over generations, repeated selection became a force strong enough to alter bodies. The living world began to hold human preference inside itself. This is why domestication is so important to the question of what remains after 10,000 years. A stone tool shows that a hand shaped matter. A domesticated species shows that human choices shaped reproduction. That is a deeper trace, because it can keep moving forward after the original people are gone. A crop does not remember the farmer, but its form may reveal that farmers existed. A dog does not remember the first human camp where its ancestors drew near, but its body and behavior still carry the long consequence of living beside people. The same is true for cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, chickens, and many other animals whose bones, sizes, diets, injuries, and distribution can reveal a relationship with human settlement. In archaeology, domestication is often seen not through one perfect sign, but through many small clues gathered together. Plant remains may show changes in seed size, seed dispersal, or where a species appears. Animal bones may show changes in body size, age at death, sex patterns, horn shape, tooth wear, disease, or butchery marks. Ancient DNA, when preserved and studied carefully, can sometimes add another layer, showing relationships, movement, and breeding history. But the interpretation must remain careful. A wild animal near people is not always domesticated. A plant used by people is not always a crop. A bone in a settlement is not automatically proof of herding. The evidence becomes stronger when many signs point in the same direction. Repeated presence, changed form, managed age patterns, controlled movement, and a landscape shaped around care, use, and dependence. The origins of farming and herding were not a simple story of humans conquering nature. They were a long exchange. Humans protected plants, and plants tied humans to fields. Humans fed and guarded animals, and animals changed movement, food, labor, clothing, shelter, and disease. Human societies became larger in some places because stored food could support more people, but that same dependence also made harvest failure more dangerous. Domestication gave humans power, but it also narrowed some choices. After 10,000 years, the clearest living evidence of us may be this exchange itself. Future observers might see that certain species spread far beyond their older ranges, that some animals had bodies shaped by herding and breeding, that some plants had lost traits useful in the wild but useful to farmers. They might not know the songs sung during harvest, the hunger before rain, or the patience of people sorting seed by hand. But they may still see that humans did not only leave things behind, we left altered life behind. We taught parts of the living world to grow along the path of our need. After 10,000 years, a field may no longer look like a field. The fence may be gone. The irrigation ditch may be filled with sediment. The farmhouse may have collapsed into soil. Trees, grasses, insects, birds, and water may have taken the surface back into a living pattern that no longer remembers the hands that once worked there. Yet the descendants of the plants may still carry a quieter record. A fruit that is too large for its wild ancestors' form, a grain that holds its seeds instead of scattering them easily, a plant growing far from the place where its older relatives began, a crop that depends on human clearing or planting to thrive. These can all be signs that human choice once entered the path of life.
What will still remain of humans after 10,000 years?
It does not remember a season of drought, a village storehouse, a child helping in the harvest, or an old farmer selecting seed by sight and touch. But its body may hold the result of many such choices. That is the strange power of domestication. It turns ordinary need into biological inheritance. Early humans did not need to imagine the far future to change it. They only needed to choose food for the next season. A heavier seed head, a sweeter fruit, a less bitter root, a plant easier to grind, carry, cook, or store. Each choice was small. Most choices were probably practical, not symbolic. People chose what fed them, what survived, what grew well, what children would eat, what could be planted again. But across generations, small choices became direction. The living world bent slightly toward human hunger. This is one of the deepest ways humans may remain, not as a statue of the body, but as a pressure inside other bodies. Archaeologists can sometimes see this pressure in charred grains, seed shapes, pollen records, residues on pottery, grinding stones, storage pits, terraces, irrigation channels, and the spread of crops into landscapes where they did not grow before. Future observers might see similar signs from us, though the scale would be much wider. They might find that certain plants had crossed oceans, mountains, deserts, and climates because humans carried them. They might see that forests were cleared, soils changed, wetlands drained, rivers redirected, and hillsides reshaped to support selected species. They might notice that a few crops occupied enormous parts of the world, not because nature randomly favored them everywhere, but because humans organized land around them. If the people are gone, the plants may still show that selection had happened. If the tools are broken, the crops may still show the kind of food the tools served, but this evidence would not be simple praise. A domesticated plant can tell a story of care, patience, and skill. It can also tell a story of dependence. Once people tied themselves to crops, they tied themselves to weather, pests, soil, storage, labor, and harvest failure. The same plant that fed a community could also expose it to famine. The same field that supported children could demand years of repeated work. Human history after agriculture was not simply easier than what came before. It was different. Bodies changed their routines. Settlements grew. Diets narrowed in some places and expanded in others. Population increased, but so did new risks. After 10,000 years, the shape of crops may reveal both human intelligence and human vulnerability. We changed plants because we needed them. Then we needed them because we had changed our lives around them. So when the future asks what remains of humans, it may not only look for bones, graves, tools, or cities. It may look at the living descendants of the species we favored. In their forms, ranges, weaknesses, and abundance, there may be a soft but lasting answer. Humans once fed themselves by persuading parts of the earth to grow in the direction of human need. Animals may carry human history in ways that stone cannot. A wall can fall where it was built, a tool can remain where it was dropped, but an animal lineage can move, breed, scatter, adapt, and still carry the long consequence of living beside people. The dog is the clearest and oldest example most listeners will feel immediately. Long before modern cities, before writing, before most farming traditions, some wolves began moving near human worlds, and over time their descendants became something different. The exact path was slow and complex, and not every detail is settled. But the broad fact is clear. Dogs became deeply tied to human life. They guarded, followed, hunted, warned, scavenged, travelled, slept near fires, and entered human attention in a way few other animals did. After 10,000 years, if dogs or their descendants still exist, their bodies and behaviour may remain as one of the living signs that humans were once here. Not because a dog can explain us, but because domestication leaves shape in life itself. The same is true, in different ways, for cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, chickens, horses, donkeys, cats, and many other animals that became entangled with human settlement, food, labour, transport, clothing, and protection. Their bones can tell stories that wild bones do not always tell. A herd animal slaughtered at certain ages may suggest human management. A change in body size may suggest breeding pressure. A pattern of injury may suggest labour, riding, pulling, confinement, or repeated use. Tooth wear may show diet. Bone chemistry may show feeding patterns or movement across landscapes. Ancient DNA, where it survives, may show relationships and spread. None of these signs should be read too quickly. A wild animal found near people is not automatically domesticated. A bone with a cut mark does not always reveal the whole relationship, but when the signs gather together, they show a powerful truth. Humans did not only alter tools and soil, we altered the lives of other animals. This was not always gentle. Domestication contains care, dependence, control, use, confinement, breeding, slaughter, affection, labour, and violence, often in the same long relationship. A cow could be wealth, food, milk, hide, bone, dung, labour, and living responsibility. A sheep could be meat, wool, movement, and seasonal work. A chicken could turn household scraps into eggs and flesh. A horse could change distance, travel, warfare, trade, and communication. A cat could live near grain stores because rodents gathered there. These animals became part of human worlds because human worlds created new openings for them and then depended on them in return. This reaches back to the beginning of settled life, when people staying in one place changed not only plants and soil, but the animals that could live near them. Camps attracted scavengers. Villages attracted pests. Stored grain attracted rodents. Herding changed movement across land. Pens, paths, watering places, dung layers, bones, and hoof marks thickened the human trace. After 10,000 years, many modern breeds may not remain as we know them. Without continued selection, some animals might change quickly, others might disappear. Some might become feral, mixing, shrinking, growing hardier, or finding new ways to survive outside human care. But even then, their history may not vanish fully. Their bones, genes, distribution, and old remains may still show that for thousands of years, human beings shaped which animals lived close, which reproduced, which travelled, which were protected, and which were eaten. The future may not know the shepherd's voice, the child's sleeping dog, the farmer's hand on a tired animal, or the quiet sound of hooves on a path at dusk. But it may see that animals once stood inside the human circle, close enough to be changed by it. Domestication does not only change the outside of an animal, it changes the way an animal lives near human pressure. Sometimes the signs are visible in bone. Sometimes they are hidden in behaviour, breeding, diet, movement, or inheritance. A wild animal moves through the world by its own risks and instincts. A domesticated animal lives inside a field of human decisions. It may be fed, penned, moved, bred, guarded, milked, ridden, sheared, slaughtered, named, or kept close for warmth and company. Over many generations,
What will
decisions
still
can
remain
leave
of
marks that last
humans
beyond
after
the people who made
10,000
them. A
years?
smaller horn, a changed skull shape, a different body size, a pattern of tooth wear, a healed injury from labor, a joint stressed by pulling or carrying, a population found far from its older wild range. All of these can become evidence that an animal did not simply live near humans, but lived through human management. The bones of domestic animals can therefore speak in a different way from the bones of wild animals. If many young males are killed while females live longer, that may suggest herding for breeding and food, though the whole context must be checked. If animals appear in places where their wild ancestors were absent, movement by humans may be likely. If bones show butchery marks, burning, storage, repeated penning, or dung-rich layers nearby, the relationship becomes clearer. If ancient DNA survives, it may show how animal lineages moved with people, mixed with other populations, or changed through selection, yet no single clue should be forced to say too much. A dog-like skull does not tell a whole story by itself. A cattle bone does not reveal the hand that led the animal. A chicken bone in a village does not explain whether it was food, trade, ritual, or ordinary household life. The truth is built from many signs gathered patiently. Behavior is harder to preserve than bone, but it may be one of the most important changes humans created. Dogs became able to live within human attention in a way wolves generally do not. Herd animals became part of systems of movement, guarding, breeding, and seasonal care. Some animals became tolerant of crowding, feeding schedules, fences, handling, and dependence. These are not small changes. They mean that the animal's future became partly tied to human routines. The beginning of this relationship was probably not a simple act of command. It was more likely a long process of nearness, usefulness, danger, advantage, and repeated contact. Animals that could survive near people gained access to new food, protection, or habitat. People gained warning, meat, milk, wool, labor, transport, companionship, or control over resources. Over time, this closeness changed both sides. Humans changed the animals, and the animals changed human settlement, diet, movement, disease, work, wealth, and emotion. After 10,000 years, future observers may find this relationship in old bones, teeth, dung deposits, tracks, corrals, stable floors, tools for riding or pulling, milk residues, wool fibers, eggshell, feathers, and genetic traces. They may see that animals were not random background life around humans. They were woven into human survival. Some were eaten, some were protected until useful, some were loved, some were worked hard, some were bred into shapes that would have been unlikely without human preference. And if living descendants remain, they may still carry parts of that long pressure inside their bodies. A future world may not hear the shepherd calling across a field, or the dog breathing beside a sleeping child, or the low sound of cattle near water. But it may still see that human history passed through animal bodies, leaving changes in bone, movement, inheritance, and the quiet habits of life beside us. If humans were gone, the animals we changed would not simply freeze in the forms we left behind. Life would keep moving. Dogs might gather, scatter, mix, become feral, or fail in places where human care had made them too dependent. Cattle might survive in some grasslands and vanish in harsher regions. Chickens might struggle where shelter, feeding, and protection disappeared. Sheep bred for heavy wool might suffer without shearing, while hardier descendants might slowly change under new pressures. Horses, goats, pigs, cats, and other familiar animals would meet the world without the human systems that shaped their recent past. Some would die out locally, some would merge into wild or feral populations, some would become smaller, stronger, more cautious, or more suited to landscapes no longer organized around farms, barns, fences, roads, and stored food. Yet even if their bodies changed, the old human influence might not disappear at once. Domestication is not a coat that can simply be taken off. It is a long history pressed into breeding, behavior, distribution, and dependence. A future observer might look at an animal lineage and see that it had once passed through human hands, even if no human hand remained. The evidence might be subtle. Bones from old settlements could show managed herds. Teeth could show diets tied to human feeding. Hoofed animals might appear in places where their ancestors did not originally range. DNA, if preserved or if living descendants still carried recognizable patterns, could show bottlenecks, selection, mixing, and movement shaped by people. Old pens, dung-rich soils, milking residues, riding equipment, harness parts, eggshell deposits, butchery marks, wool fibers, and stable floors could connect animal bodies to human routines. The future might not know whether a particular dog was loved, whether a cow was named, whether a horse was feared, trusted, exhausted, or cared for in old age, but it could see that animals were drawn into the human circle and changed by that nearness. That circle was never simple. Humans protected animals from predators, but also controlled their reproduction. They fed them, but also slaughtered them. They gave them shelter, but also confined them. They touched them with affection, used them for labor, turned them into wealth, moved them across continents, and bred them toward human needs. This is one of the most honest things an animal trace can teach. Human influence was not only invention and kindness, it was also pressure. It reached into the bodies of other living beings and redirected their futures. In the early story of our species, this mattered enormously. A person could not pull a plough with the strength of an ox. A village could not easily store every form of food without animals converting grass, scraps, and grain into milk, meat, eggs, fibre, hide, dung, and movement. A traveller without a horse, donkey, camel, or other working animal moved through distance differently. A settlement without dogs, cats, chickens, cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, or other close animals had a different sound, smell, risk, diet, and rhythm. Human history did not unfold beside animals as background scenery. It moved through them. After 10,000 years, if some of these descendants still exist, they may be living witnesses to a vanished relationship. If they do not, their bones may still remain in old human layers. Either way, they would say that humans once did something more lasting than build shelters or leave tools. We altered the pathways of other species. We made certain animals more numerous, more useful to us, more dependent on us, and sometimes less prepared for a world without us. So if a distant future asks what remains of humans, part of the answer may breathe, walk, graze, hunt, scratch, nest, or root through the earth without knowing our name. The shadow of human choice may continue inside animal life long after the people who made those choices have disappeared. There are places where the earth will remember humans not as builders, but as force. A city can become a buried layer. A grave can become a cut in soil. A tool can become a fragment. But a mine, a quarry, a dam, a tunnel, or a mountain cut open by machines can change the shape of land itself. These are not small traces of touch. They are wounds made by organized labor, technology, hunger for materials, and the long human habit of pulling the hidden world to
what
the surface.
Will still remain
Stone,
of humans
metal,
after
coal,
10,000
salt, clay,
years?
sand, oil, gas, rare elements, and building material were never simply found. They were dug, blasted, pumped, carried, crushed, smelted, refined, burned, and built into other things. The ground was opened because human bodies were not strong enough, warm enough, fast enough, or numerous enough without tools and fuel. In that sense, every deep cut in the land begins with the same ancient problem. A fragile animal needed more than its body could provide. Early humans took stone from riverbeds, cliffs, and outcrops to make edges. Later people dug pits, followed veins, opened quarries, cut blocks, and moved earth in greater quantities. Modern extraction made this impulse enormous. Machines allowed humans to remove hillsides, drain wetlands, tunnel through mountains, dig open pit mines, bore into seabeds, and redirect rivers. After 10,000 years, many buildings made from those materials may be broken or buried, but the places where the materials were taken may still remain as altered landforms. An open pit mine may soften around its edges, fill with water, grow plants, collapse in places, and gather sediment. Yet its overall shape may still be too geometric, too deep, too sudden, or too chemically unusual to be mistaken for ordinary erosion. A quarry face may weather and crack, but its cut planes may reveal that stone was removed in human patterns. A tunnel may collapse in some sections, but other sections may remain as unnatural hollow lines through rock. Dams may fail, silt up, or leave thick sediments behind them, changing river valleys long after the wall itself is damaged. These traces matter because they show a stage of human history where our reach became larger than the scale of a hand or village. A stone tool shows one body, solving one problem. A mine shows a society drawing an entire landscape into its needs. It shows organization, demand, transport, energy, risk, and often suffering. Many people lived and worked inside these systems without their names surviving. Their bodies may vanish. Their wages, fears, injuries, and exhaustion may vanish. But the cut in the earth may remain. This is not a romantic trace. It is powerful, but also unsettling. It tells future observers that humans did not only adapt to landscapes. We rearranged them when we wanted what was below. Some of these changes may become habitats in their own way. Water may collect in pits. Birds may nest on old walls. Plants may grow over spoil heaps. Microbes may adjust to chemical conditions. The living world will not leave the wound empty. But the origin of the shape may still be human. A lake may sit where people dug. A hill may be made from waste rock. A river may carry sediment trapped by an old dam. A valley may hold the memory of water controlled for power, irrigation, flood protection, or storage. After 10,000 years, the question may not be whether the land has healed in appearance. It may be whether the deeper pattern still shows that one species learned to move Earth faster than Earth normally moves itself. And in those altered valleys, pits, cuts, and tunnels, the future may find one of the largest remains of human hunger, the mark of a body that wanted more energy, more shelter, more tools, and more control than its own hands could ever hold. A name can vanish while a valley still carries the shape of a decision. This is one reason changes to land can outlast changes to culture. Culture needs memory, teaching, symbols, agreement, and living people who still understand what a sign means. A road name may disappear if no one speaks the language. A flag may lose its meaning if the nation behind it is gone. A law may vanish if the society that enforced it no longer exists. But a cut through a hill does not need anyone to remember why it was made. A dammed valley does not need its builders' names to hold a thick body of trapped sediment. A quarry wall does not need a story to show that stone was taken away. Landforms are slower than speech. Once humans alter them deeply enough, they can remain as shapes even when the reasons have broken apart. This makes them different from monuments. A monument asks to be understood. A mine or dam may survive as evidence even if it is misunderstood. Future observers might not know the company, kingdom, state, or community that ordered the work. They might not know whether people built it for wealth, survival, power, flood control, irrigation, fuel, metal, or fear. But they could still see that the land had been forced into a new arrangement. That arrangement may last longer than the social system that created it. This has happened many times in human history. Ancient fields can remain as terraces after the crops are gone. Old canals can remain as shallow lines after the water has shifted. Roads can become faint embankments after the travellers are forgotten. Mines can remain as pits and tunnels after the economy that demanded them has disappeared. The earth does not preserve intention cleanly, but it can preserve consequence. That is why a landscape can become a kind of archive without words. It holds what was done, even when it cannot explain what was meant. The deeper human origin behind this is simple and old. Humans are animals with limited bodies, but unusual cooperation and tool use. A single person cannot move a mountain, stop a river, or hollow out a deep mine. Many people, using tools, animals, machines, fuel, measurement, and shared plans, can do things no human body could do alone. Large land changes are therefore traces of collective force. They show not only that humans wanted materials, water, food, transport, or energy, but that they could organize bodies across time. Someone planned, someone dug, someone carried, someone maintained, someone suffered the dust, noise, danger, and weight. Someone benefited far away, perhaps without ever seeing the damaged place. After 10,000 years, the cultural memory of those relationships may be gone, but the physical imbalance may remain. A river may still carry the sediment pattern of an old barrier. A mountain may still show an unnatural face. A pit may still hold a lake with unusual chemistry. A spoil heap may still rise where natural hills do not form in that way. This does not mean the land stays frozen. Erosion will soften edges, plants will return, water will fill hollows, rock will fall, soil will form, animals will use the new spaces. The wound may become green, quiet, and almost peaceful, but healing on the surface does not always erase the origin. A scar on land can become habitat and still remain a scar. That is the unsettling lesson. Human cultures may tell themselves stories about progress, necessity, ownership, wealth, and destiny. Time may remove those stories. What it may keep is the rearranged earth below them. In the end, a changed landform can be more durable than the meaning that created it, because meaning lives in minds, while consequence lives in matter. After 10,000 years, the future may not know what we called ourselves, but it may still see where we made the planet carry the weight of our needs. The Earth does not need to remember our names in order to keep our pressure. A future landscape may look calm on the surface, with trees over old roads, birds nesting near old quarry walls, and water resting in pits where machines once cut downward. The noise will be gone. The engines will be gone. The workers, planners, owners, and distant consumers will be gone. But the land may still hold a shape that does not belong to ordinary erosion. A hollow too wide,
what will still remain of
straight,
humans
a hill
after
made from broken
10,000
rock,
years?
a valley filled with unusual sediment, a tunnel line through stone, a riverbed changed by an old barrier. These are not memories in the human sense. They do not know who made them. They do not mourn or accuse. They simply remain as consequences. And consequences can be more durable than the stories that justified them. This is one of the largest answers to what may still remain of humans after 10,000 years. We may remain as dense cuts, piles, channels, and rearranged slopes. We may remain as places where the planet's surface was made to serve a body that needed more fuel, more shelter, more metal, more food, more movement, and more protection than hands alone could provide. That need began long before modern industry. Early humans already searched for stone with the right fracture, pigments with the right color, fuel that would burn, shelter that would hold warmth, and water that could be reached. The difference was scale. A small group could change a campsite. A farming village could change soil, water, and nearby vegetation. A state could build roads, canals, walls, and quarries. Industrial societies could move Earth at a speed that no earlier generation could have imagined. Machines enlarged the old human reach until mountains, rivers, forests, seabeds, and underground layers became part of one enormous material system. Some changes will fade quickly, others may be softened but not fully erased. A mine can become a lake, a dam can break and still leave trapped sediment behind. A quarry can gather moss and roots while still showing cut stone. A spoil heap can become grassland while still rising with the wrong geometry. These are scars, but not scars in a simple sense. A scar can become part of the living body. A damaged place can become habitat. Plants may root in waste rock. Animals may shelter in old tunnels. Water birds may rest in flooded pits. Life does not refuse every human wound. It often enters it. Yet the presence of new life does not remove the human origin of the form. That is the quiet double image of the future landscape, healed in appearance, altered in structure. To a future observer, these marks might say that humans were not only makers of objects, they were movers of Earth. They were a species whose collective needs became large enough to change valleys, hills, rivers, coastlines, and underground spaces. This body that once became tired after a day's walking found ways to extend itself through tools, animals, engines, electricity, fuel, and organization. The fragile human hand did not grow stronger in itself. It built systems that made the hand larger than its own muscles. After 10,000 years, the systems may be gone, but the enlarged hand may still be visible in the land. A cut mountain does not tell the full story of hunger, ambition, labor, danger, invention, and loss, but it can still show that human desire touched stone at geological scale. The earth may not remember us kindly or harshly. It may simply keep the places where we pushed it out of its older shape. Some of the clearest signs of modern humans may not be beautiful and may not be easy to forgive, They may be the materials we made because older materials were not enough for our speed, hunger, comfort, medicine, trade, war, storage, and daily convenience. Stone, wood, bone, fibre, clay, and metal had served humans for a very long time. But modern life added enormous quantities of synthetic and industrial matter: plastics, concrete, glass, asphalt, alloys, processed chemicals, electrical components, insulation, packaging, fabrics, paints, batteries, and countless mixtures designed for use rather than for long return to the earth. These materials did not appear because humans were separate from nature. They appeared because human bodies remained limited. We wanted food to travel farther, houses to stand higher, water to move through pipes, roads to carry weight, hospitals to stay sterile, machines to resist heat, and objects to be cheap, light, flexible, strong, sealed, disposable, or durable. A fragile animal surrounded itself with materials that could do what skin, teeth, hands, and muscle could not. After 10,000 years, some of those materials may become one of the strangest traces we leave behind. Plastic is especially important because it does not behave like ancient organic matter. Many plastics break down under sunlight, heat, oxygen, friction, and water. They can become brittle, crack, fragment, fade, and lose their original shape. A bottle may not remain a bottle. A bag may not remain a bag. A toy may not remain recognizable as a toy. But smaller fragments and chemical traces can move into soil, river sediment, lake beds, coastal deposits, and deep mud. Some pieces may be buried away from sunlight, where change becomes slower. Others may be carried far from the place they were used. Future observers might not find the object as we knew it, but they may find a layer of synthetic particles that older ages did not produce in the same way. The trace may not say love, belief, fear, or hope. It may simply say manufacture. Concrete may leave a different kind of memory. It can crack, crumble, weather, and be invaded by roots and water, but in large amounts it may remain as altered stone-like debris. Roads, foundations, bridges, dams, tunnels, walls, ports, and broken buildings can leave masses of concrete mixed with steel, glass, brick, asphalt, and soil. Glass can shatter, but many fragments resist decay. Metals can corrode, but corrosion itself may leave stains, shapes, and chemical concentrations. Batteries and electronics may not survive as working devices, but their metals, ceramics, glass, plastics, and unusual elements may remain in broken assemblies or dispersed traces. These are not monuments in the old sense. They were often made for brief use, convenience, transport, packaging, communication, or repair. Yet their material afterlife may be long. This is the unsettling reversal of modern human life. The things we use briefly may stay longer than the things we cared about deeply. A message may vanish before the phone fragment that carried it. A meal may vanish before the wrapper. A family memory may fade before the synthetic fabric in a landfill. Ancient humans left stone tools because stone was useful and durable. Modern humans may leave industrial debris because we made durability cheap, common, and everywhere. After 10,000 years, the future may see that humans did not only live in the world. We filled it with new kinds of matter, some helpful, some harmful, some ordinary, some dangerous, all carrying the same quiet signature. A species trying to solve the needs of fragile bodies by making materials the Earth had not known in that form before. Modern materials are difficult for the future, because many of them were designed for human use, not for easy return. A leaf falls, dries, breaks down, feeds fungi, soil, insects, and bacteria, and becomes part of a cycle older than humanity. A bone may persist for a while, then weaken, mineralize, dissolve, or enter the ground in pieces. Wood rots unless protected by unusual conditions. Cloth made from natural fibers can disappear quickly in ordinary soil, but synthetic materials enter the world with structures that many natural processes do not easily take apart at the same speed. This does not mean they last forever. Nothing on Earth is truly outside change.
What will
Sunlight
still
can crack
remain
plastic,
of humans
heat can
after
deform it,
10,000
water can move
years?
it, oxygen can alter it, abrasion can grind it down. Microbes may affect some materials under certain conditions, but the problem is not simple disappearance. The problem is fragmentation, spread, and persistence in forms too small, too mixed, or too chemically unusual to return quietly to the older cycles of soil and water. A large object may become many smaller objects. A recognizable thing may become a cloud of traces. A plastic bottle may lose the story of being a bottle, but still leave particles that say something synthetic once entered the sediment. Glass may break into pieces that no longer show the window, screen, jar, or bottle they came from, yet still resist ordinary decay. Concrete may crack and crumble, but its rubble can remain as a stony layer mixed with steel, dust, and altered minerals. Metals may corrode, but the corrosion can leave color, chemistry, and concentration behind. Some industrial chemicals may change into other substances, move through water, bind to soil, or accumulate in places where older human societies left nothing comparable. This is one reason the modern age may be visible after 10,000 years, even if our meanings are not. The future may not read our signs, but it may read our materials. Earlier humans also left durable things, but usually in smaller quantities and with fewer synthetic mixtures. Stone tools, fired clay, bone tools, charcoal, shell, pigments, and metals all entered the record, yet they were not spread across the planet in the same density as modern industrial matter. Today, manufactured materials are carried through rivers, buried in landfills, laid under roads, sealed into buildings, washed into seas, worn from tires, shed from fabrics, broken from packaging, and mixed into ordinary dust. This scale matters. A rare object can be missed. A global pattern is harder to erase completely. After 10,000 years, future observers might find layers containing microplastics, concrete fragments, fly ash, unusual metals, glass particles, synthetic fibers, and chemical signatures linked to agriculture, industry, fuel, medicine, and manufacturing. They might not know the brand, the product, the advertisement, or the private reason someone bought and used an object. But they might see that a species had learned to surround itself with artificial durability. That phrase carries both achievement and warning. These materials helped keep food safe, build shelters, move water, protect bodies, repair injuries, connect people, and store goods. They also created waste that outlived the intention behind it. This is a very human pattern. We made things to solve immediate needs, often without fully knowing how long their remains would speak after us. The ancient origin is still there, a vulnerable body reaching for help beyond itself. But modern materials stretch that reach until the traces became planetary. What remains may therefore be not the beauty of our inventions but their residue, not the purpose but the persistence, not the message but the matter. And in that matter, the future may see a species clever enough to make the world easier for itself, and careless enough to make that ease difficult for the Earth to forget. After 10,000 years, the age of humans may not be recognized first by beauty. It may be recognized by oddness. A future observer might not find our music, our private messages, our names, or the feeling of a room lit at night. But in sediments, coastlines, old riverbeds, landfills, collapsed cities, farm soils, and deep layers of mud, they may find materials that do not fit easily with the older Earth. Tiny plastic particles, concrete rubble, glass shards, industrial ash, corroded metals, synthetic fibers, chemical residues, traces of batteries, electronics, fertilizers, paints, fuel, medicine, and manufacturing. Each piece alone may seem small, but together they could form a pattern. The pattern would say that one species made matter in new combinations, spread it widely, used it briefly, and left it to enter the ground, water, and air after the original purpose had ended. That may be the clearest mark of the modern human layer. Not a single object, not one monument, but a mixture, a strange sediment of convenience, invention, waste, repair, speed, and need. This would be different from the traces of early humans, though not completely separate from them. The first stone tools were also altered matter. A hearth was altered earth. Fired clay was soil changed by heat. Metalworking changed ore into usable forms. Humans have always transformed materials because the body alone was not enough. We needed sharper edges, warmer shelters, stronger containers, better clothing, safer food, longer reach, and more reliable tools. The modern difference is scale and chemistry. Industrial life multiplied altered matter until it spread through almost every kind of environment. A small camp might leave stone flakes and charcoal. A modern civilization may leave synthetic particles in mountains, soils, rivers, oceans, cities, farms, and even remote places where few people lived. After 10,000 years, these traces may not preserve the human story kindly or completely. They may preserve it materially. A future reader might see that our species was clever enough to make substances that resisted decay, but not wise enough to control all the consequences of that resistance. Plastic may no longer look like the object it once was. Concrete may no longer stand in clean walls. Glass may be scattered. Metals may be stained and corroded. Chemical traces may be changed, diluted, concentrated, buried, or moved. But the combined signal may remain unusual. It may show that humans change not only the shapes of landscapes, but the composition of the layers left behind. This is why the remains of our time may feel uncomfortable. They may say less about what we loved than what we consumed. They may show packaging before poetry, residue before memory, debris before intention, yet even this should not be understood only as accusation. These materials also came from fear, care, medicine, shelter, communication, hunger, and the wish to protect fragile bodies. A sterile medical tube, a food container, a water pipe, a road surface, a wire, a roof seal, a battery, a piece of insulation, each existed because humans were trying to solve real problems. But when millions and billions of such solutions gather, they become a burden the future can read. After 10,000 years, the modern human age may appear as a layer where the earth became crowded with things that had no simple place to return. And perhaps that is the lesson hidden inside the debris. What remains of humans will not only show our intelligence, it will also show the cost of intelligence when it moves faster than memory, faster than caution, and faster than the slow cycles that once took everything back. The most fragile human remains may be the ones we care about most. Language, names, songs, messages, and the small stories that make a life feel whole. A bone can lie in soil, a shard can sit under a field, a plastic fragment can drift into sediment, but a spoken name needs a mind to carry it. A song needs breath, memory, or a device that still works. A family story needs someone who heard it and someone younger who will hear it again. Without that chain, meaning thins. It may not vanish at once. It may blur, change, shorten, become legend.
What will still remain of humans after 10,000 years?
And a different person. But after 10,000 years, most ordinary human speech will be beyond recovery. The voice itself is only air-shaped for a moment. The words depend on a language that must keep living. The meaning depends on shared habits, references, humour, fear, love, work, tools, landscapes, and social rules. If those disappear, even preserved words can become silent in a different way. They may still be visible, but no longer understood. This is one reason writing feels so powerful and so vulnerable at the same time. Writing gives language a body outside the mouth. Marks on clay, stone, bone, metal, bark, paper or screen can carry a voice farther than breath alone. Because of writing, some ancient names, laws, accounts, prayers, poems and trade records have reached us from worlds long gone. But writing does not preserve everything equally. Many people in the past never wrote at all. Many who spoke, loved, laboured, suffered, raised children and died left no written line. Even where writing existed, it often preserved what institutions cared to record. Taxes, rulers, ownership, trade, ritual, law, victory, debt, and administration. Daily tenderness was less often protected. The beginning of human history was much older than writing. For most of our species' time, knowledge passed through bodies, through watching, hearing, copying, remembering, correcting, and doing. A child learned a path, a season, a plant, a danger, a tool grip, a fire skill, a social rule, not from a permanent archive, but from living presence. That made knowledge flexible and deeply human, but also fragile. If a group died, scattered, or was forced to stop speaking its language, entire worlds of meaning could disappear. The loss of a language is not only the loss of words, it can be the loss of plant names, place memories, kinship patterns, jokes, warnings, songs, and ways of noticing the world. After 10,000 years, even many written things from our own time may be uncertain. Paper can burn, rot, fade, or be pulped by water. Ink can disappear. Books need dry, stable conditions. Digital data seems powerful because it can be copied so easily, but it depends on machines, electricity, storage media, formats, software, and people who know how to decode it. A hard drive without the chain that reads it may become only layered material. A server farm without power and maintenance becomes a building full of silent components. A photograph without context may show faces no one can name. A message saved perfectly may still lose its meaning if the language around it dies. This does not mean all meaning is doomed. Some signs may survive, some inscriptions may be read, some records may be copied many times, some symbols may remain attached to images, objects, or repeated patterns clear enough to interpret. But most human meaning is not built for 10,000 years. It is built for a mother and child, a teacher and student, a friend and friend, a worker and task, a community and its living day. That is why the future may find more of our matter than our meaning. It may find where we lived, what we ate, what we manufactured, what we buried, what we changed, and what we threw away. But it may not recover the exact sentence that comforted someone at night, or the nickname that made one person smile, or the song that made a room feel safe. After 10,000 years, humanity may remain loudly immaterial and quietly in meaning, as if the earth kept our fingerprints but not the warmth of the hand. Writing was one of the great human answers to forgetting, but it was never a complete answer. A spoken word dies almost immediately unless another person carries it. Writing gives the word a body. It lets a thought leave the mouth and sit in clay, ink, paper, stone, metal, or light. Because of writing, people long dead can still reach us with lists, laws, prayers, stories, warnings, jokes, accounts, and names. Yet even writing is not as secure as it feels. A tablet can break, paper can burn, ink can fade, libraries can flood, stone can weather. A script can survive while the language behind it becomes unreadable. The marks may remain, but the bridge to meaning can collapse. This is the difficult truth about all human records. They do not only need material survival, they need interpretation. A sign must still be connected to a mind that knows how to read it. For most of human existence, that connection was carried by living people, not by objects. Knowledge moved from hand to hand and mouth to ear. A child watched how an elder selected stone, cooked food, tracked animals, planted seeds, repaired a net, or recognized a dangerous place. The knowledge survived because someone repeated it. Writing made that chain longer, but it did not remove the need for a chain. Even the oldest surviving texts reach us only because people copied, preserved, translated, compared, studied, and cared for them. Without that human maintenance, words can become marks without voices. Modern data seems at first stronger than older writing. It can be copied in huge quantities. It can cross oceans instantly. It can store images, sound, movement, maps, records, personal messages, scientific measurements, and whole libraries. A single device may hold more written language than many ancient cities ever produced. But this abundance hides a serious fragility. Digital memory depends on layers of technology that are easy to break over long time. A file needs a storage medium. The medium needs a working machine. The machine needs power. The power needs an infrastructure. The file format needs software. The software needs knowledge. The language needs readers. Remove enough links, and the record does not exactly disappear, but it becomes sealed away from meaning. A silent hard drive buried in a ruin may be less readable than a clay tablet fired by accident in an ancient fire. This does not mean digital records are worthless. They are extraordinary while the system lives. They allow memory to spread with a speed no earlier humans could imagine. But 10,000 years is not the timescale of convenience. It is the timescale of climate, burial, decay, corrosion, migration, forgetting, and broken continuity. A printed book in a dry archive may survive better than a damaged server. An inscription on stone may outlast a cloud account. A simple symbol repeated across many objects may be easier for the future to notice than a perfect message stored in a dead format. The older human lesson returns again. What survives is not always what contains the most information. It is what can remain readable after the supporting world has changed. After 10,000 years, future observers might find books, labels, inscriptions, signs, memory cards, disks, chips, cables, and server ruins. They may recover some language, especially where many copies and clear contexts remain, but much will be incomplete. A photograph may show faces without names. A message may preserve words without emotional setting. A database may survive as structure without the living society that made its categories meaningful. The result may be painful to imagine. We may leave behind more recorded information than any humans before us, yet still lose much of what mattered most. The future may know our materials better than our intentions, our systems better than our tenderness, our records better than the inner lives they tried to hold.
What will still remain of humans after
10,000 years? It is that traces can remain after their meaning has gone. A future world may find our bones, our walls, our buried roads, our tools, our plastics, our altered soils, our animal remains, our crop residues, our books, our signs, and perhaps even damaged pieces of our machines. It may find more material evidence from us than from almost any earlier people, yet evidence is not the same as understanding. A cup can survive without the hand that reached for it. A photograph can survive without the names of the faces. A grave can survive without the voice of grief beside it. A written sentence can survive without the living world that made its words feel obvious. This is the quiet sadness of deep time. Humans may leave many things behind, but the inner meaning of those things is much more fragile than the objects themselves. The beginning of human life was always shaped by this problem. Before writing, before archives, before machines could record sound, people carried meaning in bodies. A story lived because someone told it again. A place name lived because feet returned there and mouths repeated it. A warning about a plant, a river, a season, or an animal lived because a younger person listened. Human knowledge was never separate from human presence. It passed through breath, gesture, imitation, correction, memory, and care. That made it warm and adaptable, but it also made it vulnerable. When a chain of people broke, a whole world of meanings could break with it. A tool might remain, but the exact word for it might vanish. A hearth might remain, but the family who gathered there might be lost. A path might remain, but the song once sung along it might never be heard again. Modern people often believe we have solved this by recording almost everything. We write, photograph, film, upload, copy, archive, and store. We leave messages in more places than any ancient community could have imagined, but quantity is not the same as endurance. A vast archive can still become unreadable if the machines fail, the formats are forgotten, the language changes, the power ends, or the context disappears. Even when records survive, they may flatten the life behind them. A shopping list may remain while the meal is forgotten. A medical record may remain while the fear in the waiting room is gone. A map may remain while the reason one street mattered to one person is lost. A face in an image may remain while no one knows who looked through those eyes. This is why future remains of humans may be both abundant and lonely. They may show that we were intelligent, social, inventive, destructive, careful, wasteful, organized, and restless. They may show that we buried the dead, changed animals, spread crops, built cities, moved earth, and filled sediments with new materials, but they may not recover what a single life felt like from the inside. The ordinary meanings that made existence bearable may dissolve first. The private joke, the familiar voice, the small fear at night, the comfort of a repeated song, the silent understanding between two people. After 10,000 years, the world may hold our evidence without holding our closeness. And perhaps that is the lesson. If meaning is so fragile, then it matters most while it is being shared. The future may inherit our objects, but the living inherit our kindness, our restraint, our care for the ground, our care for other beings, and the stories we choose to pass on before silence takes them. What remains of humans may be vast in matter and small in meaning, unless meaning is carried forward by those still alive. When all the traces are placed beside one another, the human future becomes less like a portrait and more like a scattered field, a bone here, a tooth there, a grave cut into older soil, a roadbed under roots, a tunnel filled with sediment, a layer of ash, a concentration of glass, a pattern of crops, a changed animal lineage, a plastic fragment in mud, a chemical mark too faint for the eye, but clear enough to say that something unusual happened in this age. None of these remains, alone, would be the whole of humanity. Each would be only a small window, shaped by chance, material, burial, and interpretation. But together, they would form a quiet outline. The body would be mostly gone. The voice would be gone. Most names would be gone. Many cities would no longer rise above the surface as living places. But the world would not be clean of us. It would hold our pressure in many different ways. This is the important turn in the question. After 10,000 years, what remains of humans may not look human at first. It may look like a change in earth, a pattern in bone, a strange material in sediment, a crop far from its older home, a domesticated animal carrying the old shape of human choice, or a valley altered by extraction and water control. The future may not find us as we find ourselves. It may not find the warmth of a face, the intention behind a sentence, or the private meaning of a room. It may find consequences, and consequences are often more durable than identity. This is already how we meet much of the ancient past. We rarely recover a whole life. We recover hints, a tool edge, a burned surface, a burial, a tooth, a seed, a wall line, a layer of waste. From these fragments, we carefully rebuild the wider fact that people were there, that they solved problems, feared hunger, made shelter, cared for the dead, followed animals, changed plants, moved stone, and returned to certain places again and again. We should expect the future to meet us with the same incompleteness. Modern humans made more objects, more buildings, more records, and more artificial materials than any earlier age. But abundance does not guarantee clear meaning. A future observer may know that we were everywhere before they know who we thought we were. They may see the spread of our matter before they understand the tenderness, fear, confusion, hope, and ordinary fatigue that moved inside us. This is not only sad, it is clarifying. It shows that a species is not preserved by one kind of trace. We remain biologically in bone and DNA when conditions allow it. We remain socially in graves and settlements. We remain materially in tools, waste, and built surfaces. We remain ecologically in crops, animals, cleared land, and shifted ranges. We remain geologically in mines, dams, concrete, ash, and chemical signals. We remain imperfectly in writing and data, if those things can still be read. But no single trace can carry the full person. No object can hold the whole breadth of a life. After 10,000 years, humanity may be most visible as a pattern of relationships between body and soil, tool and hand, hunger and plant, care and burial, need and animal, invention and waste, memory and loss. The answer is not that humans will vanish completely, and not that humans will remain clearly. The answer is quieter in both. We may remain everywhere, but in pieces. What remains of humans is not only a question for the future, it is a question about how we live now. If the earth is going to keep some of our traces, then those traces are not neutral. They will not only say that we existed, they may say how we existed. They may show whether we treated land as something to exhaust or something to pass on. They may show whether we made materials without thinking of where they would go. They may show whether we pushed other species into dependence, disappearance, or survival beside us. They may show whether our cities were built only for speed and
humans
power,
after
or also for
10,000
care,
years.
repair, memory, and restraint. After 10,000 years, the future will not hear our explanations. It will not hear us say that we were rushed, frightened, ambitious, hopeful, or unaware. It will read the effects. This is why the question carries a quiet lesson. A human life is short, but human consequences can be long. The body disappears quickly. A voice disappears almost at once, but a changed river, a buried plastic layer, a cleared forest, a domesticated animal, a cemetery, a mine, a field, or a city foundation can continue long after the people who made the choices are gone. We often think of legacy as memory, as if the important thing is whether someone says our name, but deep time suggests another kind of legacy, the condition in which we leave the world for beings who will never know us. This lesson reaches back to the beginning of humanity. Early humans survived because they were not alone with their bodies. They learned from one another. They carried fire, tools, food knowledge, caution, stories, and care across generations. A person did not need to invent everything again, because someone before them had noticed, tested, failed, remembered, and taught. Human survival was built on inheritance. Not only genetic inheritance, but learned inheritance. The young received a world already touched by the old. That remains true now, only the scale has grown larger. We pass on not only tools and stories, but climate conditions, soils, cities, waste, species relationships, technologies, and damaged or protected landscapes. What we leave is not a background, it becomes the starting point for others. This is why the remains of humans should not be imagined only as ruins. They are also responsibilities. A grave says someone cared for the dead. A field says people organized hunger into seasons. A city says many lives were joined into one system. A polluted layer says convenience had a cost. A protected forest, a restored wetland, a repaired river, or a carefully preserved record would also say something. It would say that humans were capable of looking beyond the immediate need of the body. We were not only consumers of the earth, but sometimes guardians of it. That distinction may matter more than whether our names survive. The future may not be able to thank us or blame us in words. But it may live inside the results. The educational value of this question is simple and difficult. Human beings are temporary, but our actions are not always temporary. Because of that, care is not sentimental. Care is practical across time. To use less than we could, to repair what can be repaired, to protect what cannot be replaced, to record honestly, to bury with dignity, to build with humility, to leave other forms of life room to continue. These are not small gestures. They are ways of shaping what remains when the living voice is gone. After 10,000 years, the best trace of humanity may not be the hardest object. It may be the evidence that a fragile species understood, even briefly, that it was not the last thing the earth would ever need to hold. If a distant mind were to uncover our world after 10,000 years, it would not meet us the way we meet ourselves. It would not begin with a living face turning toward light, or a voice saying a name, or a hand reaching for another hand in the dark. It would begin lower, slower, and colder. It would begin with matter. A tooth in sediment, a road line under roots, a layer of concrete rubble, a cemetery pattern, a plastic particle in mud, a seed shape altered by generations of planting, an animal bone showing the long nearness of herd and human, a quarry wall where the land had been cut, a chemical signal too small for the eye, but large enough to say that this age had changed the ground. From such things, the future might begin to ask what kind of animal humans were. The answer would not be simple. We were not only builders, because many animals build. We were not only tool users, because tools alone do not explain graves, songs, farms, cities, medicines, machines, waste and memory. We were not only destroyers, because the same species that damaged rivers also tried to heal bodies, feed children, protect the dead, record knowledge, and carry care across generations. We were not only wise, because our materials may outlast our caution. We were not only foolish, because our survival depended on learning more than any single body could know. The remains would show contradiction, but not a cheap contradiction. They would show a fragile creature that made itself large through cooperation. A soft body made roads, a tired hand made engines, a hungry mouth changed plants, a fearful mind built shelters, a grieving group buried the dead. A remembering animal invented writing because memory alone was too weak. This is where the question becomes quiet. After 10,000 years, the future may see our power more clearly than our tenderness. It may see the mine before the lullaby, the landfill before the apology, the city layer before the private kindness that happened inside one room. But tenderness may still leave indirect signs. A healed bone can suggest that someone lived long enough to recover. A grave can suggest that the dead were not treated as nothing. A restored landscape, if it endures, can suggest restraint. A protected archive, if readable, can suggest that truth mattered. A world left less damaged than it could have been would be a form of care without a signature. That may be the most important thought to leave with the listener. We do not control what time will keep. We cannot force the future to remember us clearly, but we can influence the kind of evidence we become. Every generation receives a world already marked by others. Every generation leaves a surface, a layer, a habit, a wound, or a repair for those who come after. The first humans did not survive because their bodies were permanent. They survived because knowledge, care, and attention moved from one life into another. That is still the human task, not to become eternal, but to pass forward something less broken than it might have been. If someday our names are gone, if our languages are hard to read, if our cities lie under forests, sand, water, or soil, perhaps the best remains of us would not be the tallest structure or the hardest material. Perhaps it would be evidence that we understood our smallness before time and still chose care. And if another mind ever looks down through those layers and tries to answer the old question, what will it see when it asks what still remained of humans after 10,000 years?